Okay, so we're going to start with some very basic things at first. ठीक है, so सबसे पहले what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you interface. हमने last time देखा था सारा, ठीक है, we understand where different buttons are located. This is a workbook that we're working in. नीचे आपके पास बहुत सारी worksheets आ रही हैं that you can see here at the bottom, है ना? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start with some very basic calculations. Okay? So basically, Excel के अंदर ना आप different types का data input कर सकते हो. You can input text, for example. You can write Ahmed here and Bilal here. I've got text here. Yes. Similarly, you can have some numbers here. 30. Okay, so you can have numerical data here. You can have text data here. You can have both types of data. Now, Excel can also be used. So simplest use of Excel is that you could actually use it as a calculator, you know. So you could do, for example, simple calculations like this. So जब भी आपने कुछ भी calculation करनी है ना, so अभी हमने क्या किया? Just input some text here. हम किसी भी cell के ऊपर गए, we started typing there. Okay, we don't have to do anything else. We just go to that cell, we start typing, press enter, and it's done. तो उस cell के अंदर वो value आ जाती है. और वो value देखें, ऊपर आपके पास यहाँ भी show हो रही होगी. ठीक है? Now, if we had, you always start with an equal sign like this. ठीक है? आप इस तरह से equal sign से start करते हो, and then you can write anything, any mathematical symbols that you want. So, for example, अगर मुझे 245 और 460 को add करना होता, I could write 245 plus 460, right? Just like a calculator works. It works exactly the same as that. It equals 245 plus 460. Okay, that's 705. Does that make sense? आपने कोई भी calculation नहीं है. The first thing you need is you have to start with. Now, अगर मैं let's say यहाँ पे 460 मेरे पास एक number था, इसको मैं change कर देता हूँ. Let's say I change it to 500. My sum is still the same. That's still 705. ये तो अब तो मेरे पास नंबर से चेंज हो गया. मुझे तो 245 और 500 का सम चाहिए था अभी, लेकिन मैंने फॉर्मूला में क्योंकि I had written 245 plus 460, that is not updating. So there's actually a key thing where Excel is better than a simple calculator in this use that we're looking at. Basically, आप क्या कर सकते हो? We can refer to some cells instead of writing the numbers inside the formula. So basically what we can say is कि ये जो भी cell है ना, so that's D. So इस cell का address हमने last time देखा था कैसे आप figure out करते हो. You look at the column number, that's the column letter basically D, and you look at the row number, so that's 17. So ये 245 के cell के अंदर लिखा हुआ है, it's in the cell D17. तो आप ये कर सकते हो, आप D17 लिख दो वहां पे, ठीक है, plus the next cell, that's 500, that is D18, so you write D18 there. अब ये क्या कर रहा है formula? It's basically adding whatever is inside these two cells, ठीक है? So that's the key thing. It's adding whatever is the content of these cells. It's not simply adding 245 and 500. ये क्या add कर रहा है? It's just adding whatever is inside these two cells. तो इसमें क्या फायदा होएगा? When you change these numbers, for example, for 500 के बजाय अगर आप 300 कर दो, वो automatically update हो जाएगा, ठीक है? So 300 के बजाय आप 150 कर दो, it automatically updates. इसको हम कहते हैं cell referencing. आप cell का reference यहाँ पे input कर देते हैं. Instead of writing the exact number, you refer to another cell. So this is a key point that you need to remember. जब भी आप कोई formula लिखते हैं ना Excel के अंदर, you should try your best to not have any fixed numbers inside that formula. ठीक है? आप हमेशा किसी cell को refer कर रहे हो और उस cell के अंदर आपकी value पड़ी हो. इसको हम कहते हैं parameterization या keeping the parameters, you know, separate from whatever you are writing in the formulas. इसका फायदा ये होता है कि अगर किसी भी चीज की वैल्यू आपको किसी पॉइंट पे चेंज करनी पड़े ना, आपको जाके formulas edit नहीं करने पड़ते. You can just change the value in that one cell जहाँ पे आपने उसकी value लिखी होगी, and everything, all the formulas will automatically update because of that. Okay, so one key thing to remember right now, right from the start, this should, you should try to take care of this as much as possible. Never write numbers directly inside a formula, because what kya hota hai, it's like, those of you who have a programming background, it's like hard coding. आपने exact वो number वहाँ पे डाल दिया, अब आपको change करना पड़ेगा, आपको जाके वहीं पे जाके उस formula में जाके वो जाके update करनी पड़ेगी. So you don't do that. ठीक है, you keep the variables separate. आप जाके अलग cells के अंदर वो लिखते हो और फिर you refer to those cells. Is that point clear? Any problems there?
Yes, sir, clear.
So this is going to be extremely important when you do spreadsheet modeling later as well, that you take care of this thing. Okay, so that was the simplest of things first. अब Excel के अंदर कुछ बहुत सारे common formulas होते हैं. ठीक है, so अभी हमने क्या किया, if we had, let's say, these numbers 79, 97, 69, 62, 66, and so on. If I had to add all of those numbers, I could, do like this. अच्छा, इसमें एक तो मैंने लिखा था ना पहले, अभी equal sign डाल के मैंने खुद से लिखा A2, right? And then I wrote A3, and then A4. Okay, you generally, when you're writing, you don't do it this way. आप क्या करते हो? You press the equal sign, you move your cursor, and you just click on that cell, or automatically Excel उसको pick कर लेता है. So you write the equal sign, you click on that cell, उसने automatically उसका address डाल दिया वहाँ पे. ठीक है, then plus A3 plus A4 plus A5 and so on. अब देखिए ये तो 50 numbers हैं. 50 में ही it's going to take a lot of time. If I had, let's say, 100,000 values, 1 million values there, what will I do? Will I just keep typing like that? That's inefficient, right? And that's certainly impossible when the data is large enough. So आप इस तरह से, you cannot, just keep doing it like this कि आप plus sign डाल के आप add करते जाओ. So basically Excel has some functions that you can use instead of this. ठीक है, so for example ये add करने के लिए, so they're very, very intuitive, as in their names are very intuitive. तो आप मतलब सोचते हो उसी तरह से, like add करने के लिए this function called sum, इसके अंदर आपके पास different inputs हो सकती हैं. अच्छा, by the way, I've told you earlier as well, I'm telling you right now as well. So those of you who do not have a background in Excel before, you are going to find it a bit quick. Okay, so let me know at any point if at any point you think you're not able to understand something and you want me to slow down at any particular step. But since we have a mix of people and many of you do have experience in Excel, so for them this is like very basic things. Okay, so I want to keep a balance. So agar you need extra help at any point, we can also discuss some things in our after class at some point. हम क्लास के बाद ऑफिस आवर्स में वो इंडिविजुअल चीजें वो भी डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, लेकिन क्लास में what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and keep the speed a bit quick, क्योंकि हम बहुत बेसिक चीजें कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, so for many of you this first 1 hour at least it's going to be like ये क्या एग्जैक्टली मेरी क्लास में इतनी बेसिक चीजें क्यों कर रहे हैं, but we want everybody to be on the same level, so it's important that we give them a chance as well to catch up if they don't know about this stuff before. Okay, so now what happens is Excel has some inbuilt functions. Okay, so one such function is sum function. ठीक है, so sum function क्या करता है, इसके अंदर ये जो values आपको show हो रही है ना, आप जब भी कोई formula type करते हो, इस तरह से function type करते हो and you open bracket like this, आपको Excel ने नीचे show कर देगा इसके जो inputs होती हैं. ठीक है, so basically all of these are inputs to the function. So number 1, number 2, and then you've got these ... there. That means you can keep adding as many numbers as you want. Okay, so sum formula kya karega? For example, you click on this cell, sum of A2, comma 97 comma 69, comma 62, and so on. So you can add as many numbers as you want. So this is one possibility. This is one way of doing this. Up commas dal ke, you can add the next number and the next number and the next number and so on. Okay. But of course, you see there's a similar problem here as well. Aap kya kar rahe ho? You're inputting every value individually. That's again not very efficient. It's taking too much time, right? A8, A9, then writing A10 and so on. You can't go on like this, right? If the values are large enough, you cannot do this. Excel के अंदर एक और चीज होती है, that's called a range of cells. अभी तो हम क्या कर रहे थे, एक सेल को individually input कर रहे थे, है ना? आप क्या कर सकते हो? You can select all the cells that you want to add at the same time. Okay, so what you'll do is you will just like you do, just like you select anything on a computer. You click on this cell, you hold your mouse button, and you scroll down like this. You drag your mouse like this, और आपने पूरा select कर लिया. ठीक है? ये पूरा select कर लिया. You see what's written there? A2 colon A51. ये colon का मतलब क्या होता है? Starting from the first address जो left side पे लिखा होगा until the second address जो आपके पास right side पे लिखा होगा, इसके दरमियान में जितनी भी values हैं वो सारी इसके अंदर आ गई. ठीक है? So what this is going to do is it's going to add all of those values here. Okay, so it's 4079 here. It's actually the sum of all these numbers that we have there. Is this point clear? Any issues there?
No, sir.
ठीक है, ये colon क्या करता है? This is going to give you a range of values. ठीक है, so starting from A2 until जो आपके पास last cell था उस column के अंदर, that was at 851, तो आपने वो सारे select कर लिए. ठीक है, अच्छा इसमें भी एक, and I'm going to keep telling you a bit some shortcuts as well, which may sound difficult to remember at first, लेकिन you can actually note them down and they'll just they'll just become part of your daily routine after that. For example, यहाँ पे अगर देखें आप select कर रहे होते हैं ना इस तरह से, और ये number of values बहुत ज़्यादा होती, तो आप ये ना scroll down करते रहें, फिर आपको बहुत time लग जाता है. You just keep scrolling down and you keep waiting for this to finish at some point. So this is also a bit inefficient a lot of times when the data is large enough. एक तरह से mouse से ये select करना. Okay, so what you can instead do is आपने ये फॉर्मूला टाइप करना शुरू किया, लेफ्ट क्लिक, जिस सेल से आपको स्टार्ट करना है उस पे जाके प्रेस कंट्रोल, I'm saying it slowly, कंट्रोल शिफ्ट डाउन. ठीक है, कंट्रोल शिफ्ट डाउन. What it's going to do is it's going to select all the values in that column, considering that you don't have any blanks there. अगर blanks आएंगे फिर वो दरम्यान में रुकेगा, फिर आपको दोबारा से वो down press करना पड़ेगा. But if there are no blanks, if there are no empty cells in that range, तो वो सारे data को select कर लेगा until the end. So control shift down. इस तरह से अगर आपको right side पे select करना होता है, right का down की बजाय you could press the right button there as well. ठीक है? That gives you 4079 as the result. Any issues there?
No.
Okay. Now let's say these are actually results of some. So let's say मेरी एक class है, उसके अंदर there are 50 students, and these are their marks in a particular test that I took. Okay. Now this is something that we do very often, like calculating the mean of those marks, calculating standard deviation of the marks, and some of the other things, minimum, maximum, and so on. How do you calculate mean? Mean का formula क्या होता है? Average का formula क्या होता है? One way to think about this is you add all the values, you sum all the numbers. ठीक है, हमने वो formula type कर दिया, sum वाला, sum of A2 until A51. we added all those numbers, divided by what? Divide किससे करेंगे?
2.
Sorry?
Number of total
Number of
values.
the total entries.
Number of the total entries. So we also don't want to count that manually. We have a formula for that that's called count. Count क्या करता है? You can see the description here as well. It counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. अच्छा, by the way, this is a very important distinction. आपके साथ अक्सर ये issue आएगा कि आप count formula use करेंगे, and it would not give you the result that you expect because it only counts the cells that have numbers in them. ठीक है, बाकी cells को ignore कर देता है. So you just keep that in mind. एक आपके पास और भी function होता है that counts the number of cells that contain text that in fact that contain any value, that's called count A. अगर आप number भी count करना चाहते हैं और text भी count करना चाहते हैं, सारे cells that are not empty, you want to count all of them. In that case, you use this function called count A. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So count of all these numbers. आप क्या करें? उसी तरह से control count. I opened the bracket. Inside the bracket, I'm going to have the arguments, the inputs to that function. That's all these cells again. So ये क्या करेगा? A2 से लेकर A51 तक सारे values को count कर देगा. And I have my average there. That's 81.58. That's the mean of these marks. Okay? Is that okay? That's the mean. I just applied the mean formula here. Mean is equal to sum of all values divided by the number of values. Does that make sense? Yes? Acha, for some reason, my Zoom is actually hanging a lot or stuck. It's actually getting stuck a lot, and I cannot see if you are writing anything in the chat box. So
ये सर repeat कर दें. ये पहले आपने कहा कि count मैंने लगाया उस पे error आया है. तो count क्यों नहीं हुआ और count A से क्या मराद थी?
Error कहाँ पर आया है?
मैंने सर सिर्फ जब काउंट किया ना पहले वाला तो उससे नहीं उसने अप्लाई किया. काउंट ए किया है अभी भी उसमें वैसे आया नहीं है लेकिन आई कुडंट सी योर स्क्रीन एट दैट टाइम. इसको थोड़ा रिपीट कर दें काउंट वाले को.
Okay, so let's just try if this is working for you. Count of A2 until A51 like this. ये formula आपका work करे? See what you're getting from this.
Let me do this, sir.
So by the way, I cannot see any messages in the chat in this meeting, unfortunately. Zoom is causing some problems. So if you have any questions,
50 hai. It's 50.
Okay.
Yes.
So by the way, if you have any questions, anyone, you'll have to speak up. I cannot see the chat box right now. Okay. Acha, so it's working for you, right? मसला मतलब ये है कि आपको इस formula में कोई problem है. So you have to make sure whenever you are opening a bracket, you should close that bracket. So you should A2 colon A51, उसके बाद अपने bracket close करना है. Then you have this division sign. आप divide कर रहे हो with this thing, count of A2 to A51. Just make sure you are typing it correctly. Otherwise, there shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Does it work for you now?
Let me do it. Yes, sir. Bracket close नहीं कर रहा था.
Yeah, so you have to keep that in mind. You have to whenever you're opening bracket somewhere, it has to be closed at an appropriate step. अच्छा. अब एक तो ये तरीका हमने खुद से किया ना, खुद से हमने क्या किया, हमने खुद से सम कैलकुलेट किया, उसको डिवाइड किया काउंट से, then we got the mean. There's a direct formula for this in Excel as well, and that's called the average. Okay, average formula similar to sum formula. You can input any number of values inside this. अब average लगा के input देखें क्या input कर सकते हैं, number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. You can input any number of values inside this, and you select these values. उसी तरह से पहले control shift down A2 से A51 तक आपने सारी वैल्यू सेलेक्ट कर ली, press enter and you get the average directly. Okay, so rather than doing that sum over count, you could do it directly like this as well.
Yes, it's working.
ठीक है, is this okay for everyone?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So similarly, now you have a lot of different statistical functions that work very similarly. Okay. Inputs जो है ना, for all of them, the inputs are very similar. आपको सिर्फ function का नाम change करना है. ठीक है. Median के लिए एक function होता है called median. ठीक है. Again, इसके अंदर क्या values होंगी? A2 to A51. ठीक है. Exactly the same thing. So you get 80. So 80 is the median of these values. So basically आपका the point जिससे ऊपर और नीचे 50% of values हैं, that's called median. We discussed this in the last session. That is 80 in this case. ठीक है. इसी तरह से maximum के लिए we have a function called max. ठीक है. So whenever you write that function, you also see description appear there. Open the brackets again, A2 until A51. You can select the values from there, and you get the same thing. You get the maximum number from those values. ठीक है. इसी तरह से what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy that text जो मैंने ऊपर टाइप किया था. I'm going to keep copying it below. मैं सिर्फ फॉर्मूला चेंज करता जाऊंगा, फंक्शन का नाम चेंज करता जाऊंगा. Maximum के बजाय if I wrote minimum there, I'll have the minimum value from that data. ठीक है. That's 60. आप डेटा में चेक भी कर सकते हैं. Range का कोई डायरेक्ट फॉर्मूला नहीं होता वैसे. So for that what you can do is, अच्छा देखें, we have applied some formulas here. So maximum value कैसे आ रही है? It's by applying this formula. अब ये सेल के अंदर आपने लिखा फॉर्मूला था, लेकिन जब आप एंटर कर दोगे, you're going to see the final result there. So that's 100. And the formula that you wrote, that's going to be shown above there in the formula box. तो अब जब उस सेल पे सेल को क्लिक करोगे, you're going to see the value that you're getting as a return, as a result, and the function that you wrote, that's going to appear there in the formula bar at the top. Okay. Range क्या होती थी? Range is basically maximum minus minimum. Okay. So there's no direct formula for that in Excel as such. लेकिन आप इसमें क्या कर सकते हैं? You've already calculated the maximum value above. You've also calculated the minimum value. So what you can do is you can write another formula here, and you can say range equals 100 minus 60. Okay, does that make sense? इसको क्लिक करेंगे.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. So हमने ऊपर वाले सेल्स में से उनको माइनस कर दिया. We get the range as well. All right.
What if we don't have the maximum minimum figures readily available with us, then we have to put the formula for the maximum then minus
Yes.
minimum.
Exactly. So you can write like this: maximum of these, okay, minus the minimum of that. So it again A2 until A51. So that gives us the range.
रेंज से सर मुराद क्या ले रहे हैं? रेंज से सर आपकी क्या मुराद है? ये 40 आया, रेंज क्या चीज है?
It's actually a measure of dispersion that we discussed in our last class. So measure of dispersion, so basically it tells you about the spread of the data. So एक measure that is used to measure spread in the data is called range. That's calculated as maximum minus minimum.
Okay.
Sir, can you kindly let Mavish in the meeting room? She just messaged in the group कि वो अंदर अभी तक नहीं enter हो सकी.
Okay. Yeah, actually my Zoom is stuck for some reason. I'll have to then leave the meeting and rejoin, and hopefully that will solve the issue. So I'll just rejoin the meeting again because कोई मसला आ रहा है. Let me do that.
चिकन कढ़ाई रखेंगी, ठीक है, चिकन कढ़ाई के 2 करेंगी आप, कढ़ाइयाँ, ठीक है, चिकन कढ़ाई 2 कर
Will 2 be enough for the whole class? Okay, can you hear me again?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir, we
Yes,
can.
sir.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, all right. So I think we've got Mehmish back, and hopefully we'll have Ramsha here for the rest of the class. Okay. So Ramsha, I was just asking if 2 would be enough for the whole class. You had your mic unmuted. Sorry for calling out on that. Okay, so
Sorry, sir.
okay, so let's look at the standard deviation and the variance. So range is 40 here. Standard deviation देखते हैं. Standard deviation जो है, standard deviation का formula is given by STDEF DEV.P. अच्छा, इसमें ना 2 variations होती है. One is for the population, one is for the sample. So those of you who understand some statistics, there's something called population. There's something that the different measures that you use for sample and population. We're not going to go into detail at this point. For now, you could consider them interchangeably. आप किसी भी एक को use कर दो यहाँ. So basically population अब use करते when we have the whole data given. So we haven't taken a sample out of something. We're just considering everything. So these are the marks of my whole class. So I can just apply this population number. Standard deviation again. उसमें आप क्या करोगे? Say A2 until A51, and that's going to give you a number for standard deviation. ठीक है, so हमने last time discuss किया था how this number is actually calculated, what is the background to this. So in Excel you can just do it directly using this formula that's called HTDEV.P. All right, then you have another function called variance, variance.P, and that's A2 until A51. So that's a variance. Okay, so variance का formula is given by this var.p. देखिए inputs में यहाँ पे कोई difference नहीं है. So statistical functions are mostly like this. यहाँ पे input is not really as in any not complicated at all. आपको सिर्फ वो सारी cells की range दे देनी. ठीक है. We have 3 other things: lower quartile, upper quartile, interquartile range. Anybody who has an idea about what they mean? पता है क्या होता है?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir. Sir, if you divide
Sorry, I
your,
can't hear you.
sir, if you divide your data in 4 parts, the upper quartile means 75% and above, and lower quartile means 25% and below.
I'm sorry, I can't really hear you clearly. So basically, remember हमने क्या कहा था? बिल्कुल आप डेटा को 50% में डिवाइड कर देना, तो आपके पास मीडियन का नंबर आता है. ठीक है. So for example, if you got 100 numbers, उनको आप sort कर दो, तो 50th number जो होएगा ना, that's going to be your median, approximately 50th number. Vary करता है order even पे, but we don't want to get into that detail. इसी तरह से अगर आप 25% और 75% वाली वैल्यू देखो ना, 0% वाली तो मिनिमम वैल्यू होती है ना. This is your maximum value. 25% पे वैल्यू होती है ना, we call that a lower quartile. और जो 75% पे वैल्यू होती है, we call that upper quartile. Yeah, that's a statistical thing that you need to know. जब हम box plots, for example, करते हैं ना, उसके अंदर you are shown something like this. So generally what happens is most of your data generally lies between these two values generally. So lower quartile और upper quartile के दरम्यान में जो है generally data ज़्यादा जो है वो dense होता है. So all you need to know now at this point is 50% जो बिल्कुल आप सेंटर से कट करते हो वो मीडियन होता है. 25% अगर आप 0 से स्टार्ट करो वो आपके पास लोअर क्वार्टाइल आता है. 75% पे you get the upper quartile. ठीक है, so you can also calculate those numbers here. You don't really use that very often, but just for completeness here, statistical formulas के अंदर ये भी आते हैं. उसके लिए formula आपके पास ये होता है quartile का. ठीक है, क्वार्टाइल बेसिकली क्या करता है, या बस एक तो आपको किन वैल्यूज का क्वार्टाइल का फाइंड करना है. So that's from that's these values here. ठीक है, अच्छा इसके आर्गुमेंट थोड़े से डिफरेंट है. बाय द वे पहले हमने क्या किया था, यहाँ पे पहले वो कह रहे हैं अरे दें. So array is basically the number, the values जिनका आपने quartile calculate करना है. ठीक है, so that's the first thing that you give. The first argument, the first input को हम argument भी कहते हैं. I might be using that word sometimes, so just keep that in mind. Input or argument, the first one is all these numbers. That's all these numbers. ठीक है, अभी देखिए array bold है अभी तक, so that means you are actually at this input right now. After that, in order to input the second input, the second argument, you press comma. After pressing comma, it moves to the second argument. Okay, and then it's giving you detail there. Okay, how can you get the first quartile? How can you get the second quartile? Second quartile is basically your median, or third quartile, yeah, 75th percentile. That's your upper quartile. तो आपको इनमें से कौन सा चाहिए? Lower quartile कौन सा होता है? That is 25th percent. अब यहाँ पे 1 input कर देते हैं, and that gives us 69 here. Similarly, if we just copy that formula down there, 1 की जगह हम क्या लिख दें? 1 की जगह हम लिख देते हैं 3, because third quartile, that's 75th percentile, वो upper quartile होता है, तो वो आपके पास ये upper quartile आता है. ठीक है, हमने ऊपर मीडियन कैलकुलेट किया था 80 यूजिंग द मीडियन फॉर्मूला, वो भी आप इस फॉर्मूला से भी कर सकते थे. अगर हम यही फॉर्मूला वहां पे भी अप्लाई करें क्वार्टाइल वाला, अभी आप देखें, इफ वी इनपुट वैल्यूज देयर फर्स्ट, सेकंड क्वार्टाइल में यहाँ पे हम मीडियन डाल दें 50th percentile, we get the same result here as well. You also get 80 using this formula. यहाँ पे 1 डालते हैं, you get the lower quartile. When you input 2 as the second value here, you get the median. When you input 3 as the second value here, you get the third quartile, that is the upper quartile. ठीक है, और फिर there's another thing that's defined, that's called interquartile range. Basically इन दोनों का difference होता है कि upper quartile और lower quartile के दरम्यान में difference कितना है. This is another measure of spread that you have. That's upper quartile minus the lower quartile. तो हमने इक्वल साइन करके अपर में से क्या किया, लोअर को माइनस कर दिया. That's another measure of dispersion. यहाँ पे हमने कौन-कौन सी measure of dispersion देखी है? That's interquartile range, variance, standard deviation, and range. And we've got 2 measures of central tendency at start. That's mean and median. ठीक है? So is that clear? So you don't necessarily have to remember all these formulas. ये आप जो है during a quiz as well, or a test as well, you are going to have access to the help files that you have in Excel. आप वहाँ पे जाके आप search भी कर सकते हो. So if you press F1 for example, अपने कंप्यूटर के ऊपर आपके पास ये help files खुल जाती हैं. You can search here if you are looking for any formula as such. Okay.
Sir, what is the difference between, once we type quartile, there are 3 options: quartile.xc, exc dot नीचे उसके inc और फिर एक सादी quartile.
Yeah, so basically earlier, if you read description there of these 3 functions, this used to be in earlier versions, with 2007 earlier. अभी ये function जो है वो basically उन्होंने discontinue कर दिया है. But they still have it here, ताकि if there are some files that were made in Excel versions to 2007 or earlier to keep compatibility with that. They are still having this. In the newer versions, they only have these two functions. ठीक है? इसमें basically वो क्या कह रहा है सिर्फ एक में it's excluding the values, excluding the initial value and the final value. एक में वो exclude कर देता है उसको, एक में उसको include कर देता है. So that's the only difference here.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
but
you,
it's
sir.
very minor. We don't really need to go into too much detail there. For our purposes, we can just consider them to be the same. ठीक है, उनमें कोई difference नहीं है. ठीक है, that'll be too much detail at this level. Yes, Sadis sir.
सर इसमें एक मुझे हेल्प चाहिए थी आपसे कि जब हम फॉर्मूला लगाते हैं जैसे अपर क्वार्टाइल का या लोअर क्वार्टाइल का या इंटर क्वार्टाइल का हम लगाते हैं and you have to write it the whole way for the formula quartile.exe by yourself. Is there any short way you can select it from the Excel?
Okay, so when you start typing a formula na, so like this,
Yes. Yep.
You have some options appear there.
Yeah.
You can go up and down using your keyboard. Okay.
Okay.
Using up and down buttons, and whichever formula you want to select from there, you press tab on that, and it will automatically complete the formula for you.
Or maybe double click that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The single click
tab
was
is
not
easier
working.
generally.
So, okay, the tab is good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So these are the statistical functions that we need to know of. Okay. Now let's start with something slightly more demanding. So अभी तो हमने बहुत simple functions किया just to get a start. So now we'll start getting start making this a bit more difficult. It's not really difficult, but it requires a bit more thinking. You can say. You can leave this for now and just move to the next sheet. Okay, उसके अंदर we have the same thing. So I'll just use that. Okay, so you can move to the second sheet. It's the logical sheet there. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे भी I have repeated these again. Actually combined two different files that I was using. So this is just a repeat of that. You can just delete these cells if you want. You can keep it if you want. You can just complete the formulas here. मैं बस delete कर दूंगा इसको because we covered this thing in the earlier sheet. So I've just deleted those. अच्छा. Now there's a very common function that you're going to look at very frequently. That's called the if function. So कहते हैं if function. It's a logical function. And it's very commonly used. If function क्या करता है? So those of you have done programming, especially आपके लिए तो it's the simple if else statement that you have in your that you use every day in programming. It's exactly the same. कोई difference नहीं है. It's just the syntax that you need to know of. For others, आपके पास ये if function क्या करता है? You can actually give it some logical conditions. Okay, so if you start typing this function, equal sign press करें, then you start if function. You see it has 3 inputs to this. Okay, so the first input says logical test, the second input says value if true, and the third input says value if false. Okay. अच्छा, इसमें एक और चीज, जब भी आपके पास ये फॉर्मूलाज आप बहुत दफा देखेंगे, a lot of times you have these square brackets around some input. So for example, in this particular case, you've got the logical test as a square around कोई bracket नहीं है, लेकिन for the second and third argument you've got square brackets around them. Okay, so generally what it's going to mean is कि इन formulas के अंदर these arguments, these inputs are basically optional. Optional का क्या मतलब है कि इसके बगैर भी your formula is going to give you a result. It's not going to give you an error. ठीक है, error नहीं मिलेगा आपको. But of course, it may not do what you want it to do. लेकिन कुछ cases में आप कुछ arguments skip करके it behaves a bit differently. तो वो आप खुद से टेस्ट कर सकते हैं. So this is just point that I wanted to make here. आपके पास इसका मतलब ये होता है कि ये optional arguments हैं. अगर आप नहीं भी लिखेंगे डालेंगे ना, ये आपको फॉर्मूला एरर नहीं देगा. But you still have to basically figure out कि आप जो करना चाह रहे थे क्या उस तरह वो चीज कर रहा है वो या नहीं कर रहा. That's something that you'll have to figure out. ठीक है. Okay, that was just a point that I wanted to mention there. Let's understand this function that's called the if function. Now, the first thing is the logical test. अब यहाँ पे इस step पे आप क्या करते हैं? You basically write down a logical statement, right? So, logical statement क्या हो सकती है? That has one of the two possible outcomes. या तो उसका true, या तो वो आप कह सकें ये true है statement, या आप कह सकें ये false है statement. ठीक है? That's the logical test. Okay, it should give you an output that's binary. That's either true or false. ठीक है? And then second and third arguments वो क्या है? If function क्या करेगा? If your test here, if your first argument turns out to be true, तो जो second में आपने value लिखी होगी वो आपको show कर देगा वहां पे. अगर वो जो आपने test लिखा था वहां पे that turns out to be false, तो वो क्या करेगा? आपको ये जो आपने third argument लिखा था वो value return कर देगा. ठीक है? Let me try to explain it now. So step by step. So now that we understand the arguments, let's see how we would apply something like this. So let's say we had these marks again that we had that I had on the earlier screen as well, on the earlier sheet. And what we want to do is we want to do grading of these students on this test. Okay. And first of all, let's say I have a simple criteria. I'm not using that for now. I'm just saying if you have more than 70 marks, you pass. Or let's say greater than or equal to 70 marks, you pass. If you have less than 70 marks, you fail. Because that's a simple criteria I have initially. Then we'll see how we can do grading as well. For now, this is the criteria that I have. Okay. Now what I can do here is I can say if, so I'm starting that if function, and I'm saying if these marks, जो marks मैंने यहाँ पे input किए हैं, if these marks, अच्छा मेरा अभी के लिए ना I'm just going to write numbers there, but as I said earlier, it's not something that I would recommend you do. लेकिन अभी मैं सिर्फ formula समझा रहा हूँ क्योंकि I'm just typing numbers there, and that will probably make a bit more sense to you what we're doing. So I'm typing greater than or equal to 7. So that's the test that I have here. If A2 is greater than or equal to 70, अब comma press कर दें. Now this is the test. ठीक है? अब आप टेस्ट क्या कर रहे हो? आप ये A2 सेल को इसके साथ 70 के साथ कंपेयर कर रहे हो. So ये क्या करेगा? If it is actually true, तो ये आपको true return कर देता है. So let me actually try to do that as well. So if I were to write A2 greater than or equal to 70, देखिए मुझे क्या रिटर्न मिला? क्या इनपुट किया यहाँ पे? A2 greater than or equal to 70. It's giving me true as the result. Why? Because that is indeed true. The value in this cell is greater than or equal to 70. अगर मैं इस value को change कर देता हूँ, इसको value को 60 कर देता हूँ, what happens there? I have a false appear there. ये basically एक logical test है that's either going to return true or it's going to return false. ठीक है? इस test को मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? मैं अपने if function का first argument के अंदर डाल रहा हूँ. First input में क्या कर रहा हूँ? मैं इस logical test को डाल रहा हूँ जो क्या कर रहा है? जो marks हैं उनको compare कर रहा है एक set benchmark से, that is 70, whether the marks are greater than or equal to 70 or not. ठीक है? Is this okay?
जी sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Now what happens if the value is true? What happens if the result of this test is true? I'm going to tell Excel कि अच्छा अगर ये true result आता है इसका तो आप क्या value डालो इसके अंदर. ठीक है? So I'm saying if the marks are greater than or equal to 70, you write pass there. अब जब भी आप कोई text input करना चाहते हो ना inside a function, always remember you have to write that inside inverted commas like this. ठीक है, अदरवाइज एक्सेल इसको रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करेगा एज टेक्स्ट। यदि आपने एज टेक्स्ट कुछ लिखना है आप इन्वर्टेड कॉमास के अंदर लिखते हैं ऐसे। आई थिंक दैट्स द केस, लेट मी एक्चुअली ट्राई आउट दैट एज वेल इफ दैट वर्क्स। या इट डजंट, राइट। सो आपने जब भी टेक्स्ट इनपुट करना होगा तो आप क्या करना है, आपको इन्वर्टेड कॉमास के अंदर लिखना है। सो वैल्यू ऑफ ट्रू आप लिखो, इफ दिस टेस्ट इज पास्ड, इसका रिजल्ट 2 आ जाए तो यू राइट पास देयर, देन कॉमा, व्हाट इफ दैट टेस्ट रिजल्ट रिटर्न्स इन अ false, आप यहाँ पे क्या लिखोगे, you have a fail there, ठीक है। So I could change it, let's say passed and failed, and then at the end remember you close the bracket, ठीक है, otherwise आपको अक्सर error आ जाता है। Sometimes Excel completes it for you itself, लेकिन sometimes you have to be careful और आपको error भी दे सकता है। आपको you have to make sure you close the brackets that you've opened. So this is what you have. अब इसको enter करेंगे, you have passed return there, ठीक है। That sounds weird, so let's say pass, ठीक है। So that's your grade. All right, Sajid sir, you wanted to say something?
जी सर। सर ये तो आपने एक इसमें पास और फेल का दे दिया। इफ वी हैव टू highlight this column with like if this number is greater than equal to 70, then please highlight this particular cell with green, or green means pass, and if this is less than 70, then highlight this as a red. Red means fail. Can we do this with this if formula as well, or we have to use some other formula?
No, so the if function would not work in this case. Colors आप change नहीं कर सकते using this. So इसके लिए there's another thing that's called conditional formatting. Since you have asked now, let me actually discuss that after this. मैं आपको वो भी बताता हूँ। So we'll stay on the sheet और हम उसको भी discuss कर लेंगे अभी इसके साथ ही, ठीक है? Because
No
it's
problem.
related to that. So
Thank
let me actually complete this thing and then we'll come to that as well. Okay, so आप conditional formatting को use करके करते हो. I'll show you what that is. So this is what you have here in this formula. Is that okay? Any problems here?
So why can't we just put in the values from the boxes? I mean, why are we typing? I mean, जिस तरह variable
Yeah, so-
मतलब range देके variable दे दे और जिस तरह countif में होता है.
Yeah, so you can actually do that. So I am basically I was just trying to explain the formula first, and some people might have got confused with.
Okay. I
where
thought
that's
ये
coming
if
from.
चलता ही है. Sorry.
So what you would ideally do here is you'll say you have a minimum value for a pass here, and you've got less than 70 as the fail. तो आप इन values को use कर सकते हो। तो आपने basically इस तरह से इनको organize करना है कि आप number जो आपको उठाने हैं, they are written as numbers there. So just 70 अगर मैंने पहले लिखा हुआ था यहाँ पे greater than or equal to 70, that would not be a number. So ये अभी इसको Excel जो है as text treat कर रहा है. I would not be able to use it directly like this. मैं पहले 70 लिखो यहाँ पे, and then I've got this table here like this. Then I can refer to this cell. I can say, for example, अब A2 जो है, अब as I said earlier, you should always avoid typing something inside the formula. So that's what Mohsin was saying कि 70 हम यहाँ पे खुद से क्यों लिख रहे हैं? What if our passing criteria change tomorrow? और हमें क्या सारे formulas जाके update करने पड़ेंगे? No, that's not what we want. So आप क्या करोगे? You'd refer to that cell जहाँ पे आपने वो passing criteria आपने अलग से लिख कर रखा हुआ है. So passing criteria is at 70. So आपने उस cell को refer कर दिया. ठीक है? There's another problem that we're going to encounter here. जो अभी मैं चलें अभी discuss कर लेते हैं. पहले let's stick to this अभी. I'll just show you one thing and then we'll come to that. तो अभी देखिए आपने एक cell में तो ये लिख लिया. यहाँ पे लिख लिया था ना आपने ये. इसमें कोई problem है किसी को?
No sir.
No sir.
Now we don't want to write this again for all those 50 cells. Okay, so we just want to just apply the same formula to all those cells. इसका क्या तरीका होएगा? One way is to just click on the cell and come to the bottom right of the cell, आपके पास ये cell जो cursor है ना उसका shape change हो जाएगी. It's going to be a plus sign like this. Bottom right corner पे आए cell के, it's going to become a plus sign like this. You double click, तो ये क्या करेगा, उस formula को नीचे पूरा copy कर देगा. And how is it going to copy? देखिए first में क्या था, आप इस cell को refer कर रहे थे A2 को, नीचे जाके देखेंगे, देखिए वो automatically change करता जा रहा है. ऊपर A2 को रेफर करा था, यहाँ पे A8 को रेफर करे, that's the cell here. इसी तरह नीचे जाते जाएंगे, it's referring to A15 here, that's the cell here. So it automatically basically changes the cell references as well उसके हिसाब से. ये आपने पूरा formula type, अपना formula apply कर दिया पूरे cell के ऊपर, and you've got the pass and fail for all those people. कि आपको सिर्फ एक cell में आपको formula type करना पड़ा, and you were just able to extend that down on all the other cells. Does that make sense? Any problems there?
ये सर जरा दोबारा बताइए कि मैंने उस पे अप्लाई किया लेकिन सारे पास आ रहे हैं.
अच्छा,
पहले
आपने क्या लिखा था यहाँ पे? Is your formula is exactly the same as this?
If A2 ये सर A2 greater than 70 को मैंने खत्म करके पहले वाला खुद ब खुद चेक कर लिया था जो आपने पहले किया था. लेकिन
आपने ये किया था E10?
Yes sir.
Yeah, so that's why it's not working. So there's a reason I changed back to 70. I'll explain why this is not working. For now, just do it 70 and it'll work.
Okay. Yes, it's working now. I'm back to the same formula.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a moment. Is this clear how you can copy the formula down like this?
Yes.
जी sir.
Bottom right पे आके double click. So that's one way of doing this. Another way of doing this is ये तो सिर्फ उन cells पे होगा जो उसके नीचे होंगे. अगर आपको right side पे copy करना होता है, नीचे copy करना होता. Another way of doing this is आप इसको बस copy कर लो, Control C करें और सारे वो cell select करके जितने भी आपको करने हैं, Control V कर दें. It's going to do exactly the same thing. तो copy paste में ना automatically वो formula उसी तरह से लेके जाता है नीचे, ऊपर नीचे. अगर आपको एग्जैक्ट वही टेक्स्ट कॉपी करना हो ना कि यहाँ पे A2 लिखा हुआ है तो आपको A2 ही चाहिए, you'll copy this text like this. आप इस तरह कॉपी करेंगे तो पूरा इस तरह से टेक्स्ट कॉपी करेगा. अगर आप पूरे सेल को ऊपर से इस तरह कॉपी करेंगे यहीं से like this, ये क्या करेगा, आपके सेल रेफरेंसेस उसी तरह ऑटोमेटिकली अपडेट कर देगा जिस तरह पहले केस में हुए थे. फॉर एग्जांपल आप नीचे जाते जा रहे हो तो A2 था पहले, यहाँ पे A12 हो गया, and so on. A19. This cell referencing is extremely important, so please make sure you ask right now अगर यहाँ पे कोई आपको issues है तो. Can we move on? Is this okay?
जी sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now let's take that suggestion that Mohsin was saying. Mohsin was basically giving. You should not really have numbers like this in a function. हमें क्या करना चाहिए? हमें ये करना चाहिए. हम यहाँ पे करें if A2 is greater than or equal to whatever is the value in this cell, then you give a past result. लेकिन past result भी तुमने खुद टाइप किया था ना, ये भी आपको cell reference देना चाहिए. Past should come from this cell here. ठीक है, D10 वाली value डाल दो. If it's not true, तो आप ये वाली value डाल दो जो इस cell के अंदर यहाँ पे पड़ी हुई है. ठीक है? Is that okay? इसमें कोई इशू? हम वो वैल्यूज खुद से टाइप करने के बजाय we just referring to that cell. और जब सेल को रेफर करे हो तो you don't need that inverted commas either. You can just give a cell reference like that. ठीक है?
दोबारा रिपीट करें सर.
So instead of all those values that we had written there, we have just given the references to the cells जिनके अंदर वो values पड़ी हुई थी. So 70 E10 में था, we gave that reference. Pass was written inside this cell, D10, we gave that reference. Similarly, fail was written in D11, we gave that reference. आपको यहाँ पे inverted commas नहीं चाहिए होते. pass के लिए हमने पहले इन्वर्टेड कॉमास में पास लिखा था, but that was because we had written pass ourselves. हमने खुद टाइप करके लिखा था, so we need to make sure Excel understands कि वो उसने as text treat करना है. लेकिन जब सेल रेफरेंस दे रहे होते हो आपको उसकी जरूरत नहीं होती, एक्सेल ऑटोमेटिकली अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट कि वो टेक्स्ट उसके अंदर टेक्स्ट था पहले, तो एज टेक्स्ट ही ट्रीट करना है उसको यहाँ. सो एसेंशियली व्हाट वी हैव डन इज हमने वैल्यूज खुद से लिखने के बजाय हमने उन सेल्स का रेफरेंस दे दिया. ठीक है?
Yes.
लेकिन
fine?
सर सर लेकिन इसमें तो हमें वो पहले फ्री सेल भी तो करने पड़ेंगे ना, if you want to sort of drag it down.
Yeah. So I'm coming to that. I'm just going to show why this is not going to work. So just hold on for a moment. So we'll come to that. So is this okay? Is this function working for you?
No, sir, it's
Yes, sir.
actually not working.
No, in this cell, is it working? Is it giving a pass result?
No, sir. This is Hanan.
So what is the error that you're getting?
Sir, I just found the real results in first two cells pass fail, then it's continuously 0 0 0 0. I just checked the proper spaces and the brackets. Everything is fine.
No. Do you have exactly the same thing as I've written here?
Yes, sir, I have exactly this.
Equals if A2 greater than or equal to E10, comma D10, comma D11.
Sir, can you please double click on the plus sign?
No,
So that so
Hanan,
we
are you? No. Hanan, are you getting the right answer on B2 column? B2 cell?
yeah, on B, not exactly. In just
On
first two
B2.
cells pass fail. Yeah. B2 and B3 is correct. Then after
So that's what I'm asking. B2 में correct आ रहा है ना आपका?
yeah, B2 में correct है.
Okay, so just stay at that point, and now see what if we extend the cell उसी तरह से पहले की तरह से हमने ये formula तो type कर दिया. Let's extend this formula down. Well, we're having a problem there. So it's not really giving us results for any of the other cells. So what is the
Yes.
problem? Let's try to edit any of those cells. अब देखें पहले वाले तो cell वो सारे references ठीक थे. Now let's try this cell. So what is happening? A6 तो सही है, हम वो A2 के बजाय A6 आ गया. What is happening is the other cells are also moving down. So पास वाला सेल ऊपर था D10 में, वो भी नीचे चला गया. So now we are referring to those cells here. So that is what is causing this problem कि आपके नीचे extend नहीं हो रहा है ये cell, है ना? Because
जो डॉलर साइन टाइप लगाएंगे सर.
yes, so these cells are also moving down. So basically we need to take care of this कि हमें पहले decide करना है कि जब हम इसको drag करेंगे नीचे, which cells should change and which cells should not change their positions. So A2 for example, it's right now it's referring to 79. This should keep going down. ये A3 हो जाना चाहिए, A4 हो जाना चाहिए, 5 हो जाना चाहिए, and so on. However, these cells जो pass, fail और 70 हैं, ये नीचे के साथ साथ नहीं जाने चाहिए. These should just stay there. इसके लिए एक तरीका होता है जिसको हम कहते हैं absolute referencing, कि हम उन cells को freeze कर देते हैं. उसमें what you do is जब आप लिख रहे हो ना formula, for example अभी भी वैसे भी आप बाद में edit करके भी जिस सेल को आपने फ्रीज करना है कि जिसको मूव नहीं करना चाहिए, फॉर एग्जांपल E10 जिसके अंदर 70 लिखा हुआ है, इसको नीचे मूव नहीं करना चाहिए, उस सेल पे जाके आप क्या करेंगे? प्रेस F4. F4 प्रेस करें एक दफा. What it's going to do is it's going to put these dollar signs before E and before 10. इसका मतलब ये है कि उसने उसकी रो और कॉलम and row in that order दोनों फिक्स कर दिए कि both of them cannot move now. Similarly, you do it for D10 and D11 as well. उस पे जाके आप F4 press करो, it's going to freeze that. D11 पे जाके you press F4, it's also going to freeze that. So now when you drag this formula and you press that plus button, these cells are not going to move anymore. ये आपने fix कर दिया. ये basically एक तरीका होता है उन cells को fix करने का. A2 का आपने fix नहीं करना because you want to move that. वो A2 की बजाय A3 होना चाहिए next time. वो A4 होना चाहिए next time. Once you do this and you again press on that plus button, now it's going to work for you. ठीक है, because अब देखें नीचे किसी भी सेल पे जाके देखें, वो जो सेल्स आपने फिक्स किए थे, they have not moved now. वो पहले नीचे चले गए थे ना, now they're not moving anymore. A7 वो नीचे आ गया, and that's exactly what we wanted to happen. ठीक है, so this is basically the difference between relative referencing and absolute referencing. Relative referencing is जो हमने यहाँ पे A के साथ किया है, इसको हम कह रहे हैं कि relative to the position of the formula, ये भी साथ साथ move करना चाहिए. Absolute referencing होती है जहाँ पे हम fix कर देते हैं कि अच्छा ये इसी सेल पे आपने रहना है, it should freeze here, it should not move. ठीक है, so ये आपने इसका ख्याल रखना होता है in any formula that you can do, copy anywhere or drag down, you have to make sure your references are correct. जो relative होने चाहिए वो relative है, जो fixed होने चाहिए वो fixed. Is this point clear?
मेरा सर सारे फेल आ रहे हैं, प्रॉब्ली आई एम मेकिंग सम मिस्टेक. फॉर्मूला तो सेम लिखा आ रहा है, मैंने साथ वाले कॉलम में एक्चुअली किया है, सी वाले के अंदर.
Okay.
But it's all fail where I'm making mistake. I don't know if A2 is equal greater than equal to E10 D.
Just make sure you've got $2 signs there, one before the letter and one before the number. कभी-कभी
yes.
आप ना F4 दो दफा प्रेस कर देना तो वो चेंज भी करता है, उसको हम मिक्स्ड रेफरेंसिंग कहते हैं. We'll discuss that at some point later as well. आपको $2 साइन चाहिए. Just make sure you have that, and then otherwise it should not have a problem.
या हसन
दो
प्लीज
दो
चेक, काइंडली एक चीज चेक कर रहे हैं, पास फेल और 70 वाला सेल ठीक करेक्ट किया है. ये जो एरर आपके पास आया मेरे पास भी आया था, मैंने सेल गलत सिलेक्ट किए थे.
3 एक्टिवेट हो रहे हैं सर. अगर आप डबल क्लिक करते हैं तो ये 3 एक्टिवेट होते हैं. लेस देन 70 वाला एक्टिवेट होगा इसमें?
नहीं, वो तो हमने इनपुट नहीं किया ना कहीं पे, वो हमने कहीं पे यूज नहीं किया, वो नहीं होएगा. So this is what I have.
But I'm getting all the fail values. Probably. कार मैं सर इसको सी कॉलम में रहा हूँ, इससे कोई इशू तो नहीं है? मैं इसको सी साथ वाले कॉलम में कर रहा हूँ जस्ट.
नहीं, that's not a problem. Just make sure your references are correct. यहाँ पे E10 ही होना चाहिए, यहाँ पे D10 होना चाहिए, यहाँ पे D11 होना चाहिए. आपने कोई insert तो नहीं किया. Just make sure when you edit that, you have the same color, you have the same
yes,
positions.
I'm getting the same. Yes, ये सेम सर हो रहा है, हाईलाइट हो रहा है.
आपने फिक्स किया उनको, इस तरह डॉलर साइंस भी आ रहे हैं इसी तरह से.
जी एग्जैक्टली. If A2 greater than equal to $E, मैंने 9 को लिया हुआ है एक्चुअली, E9, D9 and D10.
Okay, and what is the error that you're getting?
लॉजिकल साइन ठीक आ रहा है, ग्रेटर देन ही आ रहा है.
जी greater than equal to, और ये तीनों हाईलाइट भी हो रहे हैं. मैंने प्रेस द
What is the
प्लस
error that you're
बटन.
getting?
एरर कोई भी नहीं है सर, सारे फेल आ रहे हैं नीचे बस.
सारे नीचे
पास
fail आ
फेल.
रहे हैं.
स्क्रीन चेक वाले जल्दी बस हो जाएगा इस तरह.
अब स्क्रीनशॉट हसन अप्रिशिएट कर दो.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे 70 आपने चेंज कर दिया था ना नंबर?
Oh no, it was greater than equal to 70.
Yeah, so that's why it's treating as
It's working now.
as text. आपको इसको number में convert करना है.
जी it's okay now. Thank you so much. Sorry for disturbance.
Okay, so this was a point about referencing here कि आपको जब reference देना है ना किसी भी चीज का, तो आपने ख्याल रखना है where you're going to use relative referencing and where you're going to use absolute reference. कहाँ पे fix करना है, कहाँ पे fix नहीं करना. अच्छा, now let's say it wasn't as simple as this case, and instead what you had to do was you had to apply proper grading. हम सिर्फ क्या कर रहे हैं, सिर्फ pass fail कर रहे हैं. I'm going to add another column here, and I'm going to say now we're going to apply proper grading here. From A to F. Yeah, I've got, let's say, 3 grades here, A to A, B, C, and then F. What do I do in this case? So सबसे पहले आप इसको वैसे ही logic सोचने की कोशिश करें. How should this logic look like? आप अगर खुद से कर रहे होते, so without thinking about the Excel formula that you're going to use there, just think about in logical terms कि आप वैसे ही यहाँ पे क्या करते हैं. So what would be the logic that you build? So सबसे पहले आप कहाँ से start करोगे?
तो सबसे पहले चेक करेंगे 90 से ग्रेटर है या नहीं.
अच्छा, so you're saying check if greater than or equal to 90. अगर वो आ जाए तो फिर क्या करेंगे?
फिर
is
ग्रेड
equal
ए
to
होगा.
A.
अगर नहीं होगा तो फिर दोबारा चेक करेंगे 80 से ग्रेटर है या नहीं.
Okay. So basically, this is what Mughal is suggesting. We start with this. We check whether if it's greater than or equal to 90. अगर वो है, अब A assign कर दो. If it's not, you apply another check and check whether it's greater than or equal to 80. अगर वो है, अब B assign कर दो. Otherwise, check if it's greater than or equal to 70. If it is, you assign C. Otherwise, अब कुछ check करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Greater than or equal to 70 भी नहीं है, तो आप क्या करो? उसको F assign कर दो. Does that logic make sense?
So less than 70 तो define करना पड़ेगा.
So हमने सारी conditions already, if it's not greater than 90, if it's not greater than 80, if it's not greater than equal to 70, so it's obvious it's going to be less than 70 then. No?
Yes.
So आपको वो extra condition लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है. If you want, you can also add that if you want, but उसकी जरूरत नहीं है as such. Basically, if it's already failed the other the first three conditions, अगर वो greater than equal to 70 नहीं है, इसका मतलब यही है कि वो less than 70 है. उस केस के अंदर you just assign an F there. ठीक है? अच्छा. Any other ways of thinking about this? कोई इसका और भी तरीका हो सकता है? कोई किसी और तरह लॉजिक बना सकते हैं? Anybody else?
और सर हम इंटरवल्स बना सकते हैं.
Okay, that's one way to say if you have marks between 90 and 100, you get an A. You give an A. If you have between 80 and 90, you give a B. That's correct. So it's just going to make it even more complicated. Yeah, so that's one possibility as well. What about this logic? So a lot of people do something like this as well. Let me know if that should work. So it's just programming 101. But some of you might have a confusion there. So we can do something like this as well, right? आप पहले 70 वाला चेक कर लो, फिर आप 80 वाला चेक कर लो, फिर आप 90 वाला चेक कर लो, उस पे लगा दो, फिर आप F कर दो, बाकी पे अगर कुछ भी नहीं satisfy कर रहा. Is that okay? Anybody who can please raise your hand first before speaking. Any ideas if that should work?
सर ये तो दोनों सेम नहीं है, इसमें तो दोनों में ऐसा कोई फर्क नहीं है.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my point, right? Both of them should work, right?
हम लोग इस रिवर्स ऑर्डर में तो ला सकते हैं, यानी अगर लेस देन वाले लेस देन से यानी जो ग्रेटर देन वाले की फिगर की बजाय इसको रिवर्स ऑर्डर में ले सकते हैं, लेस देन से.
That's also possible, yes. But what I have written there, does that work? Let's actually try. So let me write down these formulas here. Okay. So let me apply this here now.
This won't work.
Sorry?
This won't work.
It's not correct. So Mughal, let me actually try and write this down so that everybody else is clear on this as well.
Okay.
So let's wait for a moment. So let's see हम इसको पहले so ये first वाले case को let's try and type this first. ठीक है? So how are we going to write this formula? अब इसको हम कहते हैं nested functions. ठीक है? So you're going to have one function inside another function, and that's going to be inside another function. So it's going to get a bit more complicated now. So make sure that you're paying attention. पहले तो हमारे पास एक simple if एक single if condition थी, है ना? Single if function था. But now you're going to have more than one if condition. Okay, so अब यहाँ पे देखिए लॉजिक क्या है, आप एक मार्क्स लोगे यहाँ से, आप फॉर एग्जांपल 79 आपने उठाया, 79 को आप इससे चेक करोगे, उससे ग्रेड असाइन करोगे। 79 आपके पास यहाँ पर आया, इनपुट किया आपने इसके अंदर, so the first thing you do is you check if that's greater than or equal to 90. That's not, so आप next side पे चले, next step पे चले गए। Check if it's greater than or equal to 80. It's again not. You go to the next step. Check if it's greater than or equal to 70. That is correct. You assign a C there. आपने इसको C assign कर दी, ठीक है? So that's how the logic is working. Similarly, if you had, let's say, 100 there, so you go to the first step, check if it's greater than or equal to 90. Well, it is, so you just assign A there directly. आपको बाकी सारे function में जाना नहीं पड़ा. Similarly, every number will work like this. ठीक है? तो अब क्या करोगे? How are you going to write this? You're going to say, if you start with this, so what is your first test? First test is if the marks, that's A2, so let me hide this column. So if your marks, that's A2, are greater than or equal to 90, 90 हम क्या लेंगे वहां से उस grading criteria से उठाएंगे, greater than or equal to this number, और इसको क्या करेंगे हम, इसको हम fix भी करेंगे because we do not want this number to move down when we apply the formula on the rest of the cells. जब drag down करें उस formula को, this cell जहां पे 90 लिखा हुआ है, this should not move. This should not move down. तो यहाँ पे क्या करेंगे, इस cell को fix भी कर देंगे. So you press F4 there. All right? Is that okay?
जी सर।
All right. What value should it give if it's true? What do you think? अगर ये greater than or equal to 90 आ जाता है, what should we do?
We will assign A, sir.
We'll simply assign A, right? 90 से ज़्यादा marks हैं, we don't need to check anything else. We just give an A that right away. So हम क्या करें यहाँ पे, if the value is true, no sorry, if the logical test comes out to be true, तो value क्या होगी यहाँ पे? That's going to be this A here. इसको भी हम fix कर देते हैं. ठीक है? Okay. What if that value is false? What happens in that case?
We add another if.
If the value is false, we are going to add another if condition. यहाँ पे आपको एक और condition start कर देनी है, ठीक है? So you add another if there. अब आप क्या check करोगे? If the marks are greater than or equal to 80. ठीक है? अभी देखिए ये वाला if function जो है, ये पहले वाले if function के अंदर आ रहा है. उसकी जो ये देखिए value if false वाली condition थी ना, उसके अंदर हम एक और condition डाल रहे हैं. So it's if inside another if. Just keep that in mind. So it's called a nested function. तो यहाँ पे हम क्या करेंगे? We have to again check those marks, whether those marks are greater than or equal to 80 now. 80 के लिए हम cell का reference दे देते हैं. And we press that fix button. F4 press कर दिया और हमने उसको fix कर दिया. ठीक है? अब आपने अपने उस पे देखना है. I changed the position of this deliberately ताकि जब आप खुद कर रहे हो तो you are keeping your own data in mind. Because I'm getting F9 here, you would have something else on your screen. आप आपके अपनी शीट के ऊपर F9 की बजाय आप जहां भी आप देखेंगे 80 कहां पर आ रहा है उस सेल का रेफरेंस देंगे वहां पे. What happens if this condition is true? आप इसको B assign कर दोगे. So you assign this number and you also fix this. ठीक है? What if this is false? If this is false, you add another if condition. आप next condition पे चले जाओगे, आप कहोगे that is also false. You check whether the marks are greater than or equal to 70 now. 70 कहाँ पड़ा हुआ है? 70 is here in this cell. That's F10. You also need to fix that because you don't want this to move. हमने F4 press कर दिया. if this condition is true, what do you do in that case? You assign C to that person, to that particular test. इसको भी आपने fix कर दिया. And if this is false now, what do you do in this case? You got another if condition.
Assign
ये
S.
condition में fail हो जाए. Anybody other than Mughal and Fahim?
So simply
Is
we'll
less-
mark this F. अब यहाँ पे हम further कुछ नहीं करेंगे. All conditions are checked.
Yeah. So we don't need another if condition after this, because if the marks are not greater than or equal to 70 either, it's necessarily implies they're less than 70. So you just input F in that case. Okay? F value डाल दी. If the value is false, if that condition is false, you put E11 there and you close the bracket. अब यहाँ पे you have to be careful. पहली bracket close करेंगे. This is for this if condition जो सबसे अंदर है. Colors भी आपके match हो रहे होंगे. If you look at this, आपके हर if condition के जो brackets हैं उनके different colors हैं. First was black, the second was red, the third is purple on my screen. So आप अपने देख सकते हैं, आपके different colors में show हो रहेंगे. So you have to match those. So आपने पहला if बंद किया, अभी बाहर वाला if बंद किया, red वाला. And then finally you have to close the सबसे बाहर वाला if, that's the black one. You got 3 brackets at the end because the if conditions inside were actually nested inside the ifs that were outside. तो वो एक if के अंदर multiple ifs और आ रहे हैं. ठीक है? So you close the 3 brackets and you press enter and you got that grade that you were looking for. Now what you do is you click on this, you extend the formula. उसी तरह आप bottom right पे जाएं, double click कर दें, and it will apply the formula to all the cells that are below. ये आपकी सारी grading होगी. ठीक है? So you don't have to do it manually. You can just develop a function like this, and it does it for you. Let me show the formula on the screen. For those of you who would want to have a look again. Any problems here? Anyone?
No, sir. Can you give us 3 minutes so that we can do one example by ourselves before we move forward?
Yeah, sure. So you should. So if you haven't been following this yourself, let's take 5 minutes and try to do it yourself. So try to just replicate what we've done here on your screens as well, on your own screens as well.
Thank you.
Yes, Hera.
Sir, please repeat the last 3 brackets that comes at end. That's the formula.
These 3 brackets?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So basically, what we're doing is हमने 3 if conditions start की हुई हैं, but we have never closed them. So सबसे पहले आप क्या करेंगे? जो सबसे अंदर वाली if condition है, you're going to close that first. ये आपने इसको close किया पहली bracket से, फिर उसके बाहर वाली को close किया है इस second bracket से, और फिर हमने third वाली को close किया जो सबसे बाहर वाली है, वो भी यहाँ पे close होती है. तो हमने तीनों को close करना है, वो हमने 3 brackets इसलिए हैं. We're closing 3 conditions at the end. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
सर ये हम लास्ट वाला लेस देन 70 क्यों नहीं अप्लाई करते और ये एफ कैसे आ जाता है?
तो देखिए लॉजिकली सोचें, आपके पास एक मार्क्स हैं 0 से लेकर 100 तक, ठीक है?
ठीक है सर।
आपकी पहली कंडीशन है कि 90 से ऊपर, 90 या उससे ऊपर जितने भी है ना, आप उनको ए असाइन कर देते हैं, ठीक है? ऊपर वाले मार्क्स निकल गए सारे जिनके 90 या उससे ज्यादा थे। उसके बाद
Yes,
आप क्या करते हैं, बाकियों में से जिनके 80 या उससे ज्यादा है उनको आप बी असाइन कर देते हैं, ठीक है?
बिल्कुल ठीक है।
तब 80 से 100 वाले भी निकल गए।
जी सर।
ओके, उसके बाद आप क्या करते हैं, जिनके 70 से ज्यादा है, यानी 80 से पहले तो 80 से ऊपर वाले तो पहले निकल गए, अब जिनके 70 से ज्यादा है उनको आप 70 या उससे ज्यादा है उनको आप सी असाइन कर देते हैं। तो अब 70 से लेकर 100 तक हम सारे जो हैं वो उनको ऑलरेडी असाइन करके साइड पे कर चुके हैं।
जो बाकी बच गए वही आ जाएंगे।
जो बाकी बच्चे हैं दे आर नेसेसरली ऑल दोस पीपल जिनके 70 से कम है, तो वहां पे हमें
लेकिन
और एक्स्ट्रा
वैसे सर
कंडीशन
अगर
लगानी
कर दें अप्लाई तो आ तो फिर भी जाएगा ना, वैसे अगर अप्लाई कर भी दे तो।
यस यस, आ जाए, बिल्कुल आ जाएगा। उसमें आपको सिर्फ एक
Right.
और इफ कंडीशन लगानी पड़ेगी, 4 इफ कंडीशन हो जाएंगे, दैट्स द ओनली प्रॉब्लम।
बिल्कुल ठीक है, गॉट इट सर।
अदरवाइज कोई मसला नहीं, लगा सकते हैं।
थैंक यू सो मच।
सर ये हो सकता है कि हम सिर्फ एक इफ कंडीशन लगाएं और दरमियान में रेंजेस देते जाएं।
रेंजेस कैसे देंगे?
सर जिस तरह काउंट इफ वाले फॉर्मूले में यू गिव अ वेरिएबल एंड यू गिव अ रेंज एंड देन यू
लेकिन
गिव अ वेरिएबल रेंज।
यहाँ पे मल्टीपल रेंजेस है ना
सर उसमें बेसिकली काउंट इफ में तो हम एक मर्तबा लगाते हैं ना काउंट इफ, और फिर बाकी हम वेरिएबल रेंज देते जाते हैं, तो हमें काउंट इफ बार बार नहीं लिखना पड़ता। तो मैं सिर्फ वो देख रहा था कि अगर इफ इस तरह कोई इफ वाले फंक्शन में होता है कि इफ में अगर हमने नेस्टेड फंक्शन लगाना हो तो हमें फिर टू राइट इफ ओवर एंड ओवर ओवर अगेन।
there's another workaround to this, that's using VLOOKUP, जो
Yes.
that's going to be much simpler than this, lekin in this case since we're actually referring to the same column again and again, we have to basically apply a nested function like this. We cannot use
Okay.
one single function. Even if you use the ranges using the and or functions, उसमें भी आपको if condition फिर भी nest करनी पड़ती है।
ठीक ठीक, okay sir, thank you.
But we'll discuss a method using the VLOOKUP's approximate match argument, but that's going to come at some point towards the end of today's session, maybe tomorrow if you're not able to get that far today.
Okay, thank you sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
अगर हम f के लिए भी कंडीशन ऐड कर देते हैं if a2 is less than 70, तो उसमें हम फिर फॉल्स की कंडीशन में क्या ऐड करेंगे, या फिर हम उसको खाली भी छोड़ सकते हैं?
उसको आप इग्नोर कर सकते हैं, because remember it's an optional argument, so the formula is going to work without that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I hope all of you are done with this. So let's look at this other logic that I suggested. देखिए यहाँ पे इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है, and this is a very common mistake that a lot of people do, that they start it the other way around. So let's say आपने क्या किया, you start with this condition, so 79 comes in here, 79 पे वैसे तो C होना चाहिए, so but let's say 79 to start करते हैं, 79 आपने input किया and you apply this logic. Check if greater than or equal to 70, it is greater than or equal to 70, it satisfies the condition, इस पे true result आएगा, आपको C आपको grade कर देगा, and that's correct, उसमें कोई मसला नहीं, ठीक है, that's totally fine, C assign कर दिया. Okay, what about the next value, 97 आपने input किया इसके अंदर, 97 comes inside this function. Now this function is going to check whether 97 is greater than or equal to 70. That's the first step in this function, right? So this is the first step, second step, third step, fourth step. The first step क्या करता है? It checks whether the function is greater than or equal to 70. Now is 97 greater than or equal to 70?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
it is, right? So ये function क्या करेगा? It's going to assign a C to this because ये greater than or equal to 70 है, condition meet कर गया, इसने इसको C assign कर दिया वहीं पे. and then the function stops there. It doesn't move forward because forward से तब जाना था ना अगर if condition false हो जाती. अगर ये true है तो उसको C उसको result देके उसको वहीं पे stop कर देगा function को, and that will be wrong. इसको C assign कर दिया. So basically 70 से ऊपर जो भी values होंगी ये function क्या कर रहा है, उनको C assign कर देगा. आप next step पे जाओगे नहीं कभी भी. और अगर 70 से कम होएगा तो फिर तो ये तीनों conditions false होंगी और F पे पहुंच जाएगा. So basically essentially what this whole function is going to do is anything greater than or equal to 70 ये function उसको C दे देगा और anything less than 70 ये इसको F दे देगा. ठीक है? So that's the problem with this function. You would not want this function to be applied on your grading, right? Otherwise you're going to get only C or F. So this is not correct. ठीक है? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You could do it the other way around if you wanted, and that would be fine. For example, you could say if check if less than 70, and you could assign F to that. Check if less than 80, you assign C to that. Sorry, what's happening there? C, F. Check if it's less than 90, आप B assign कर दो. Otherwise, you assign A. You could do the other way around like this, and that will be fine. This works. Okay, this could be another way of thinking about this. ठीक है, तो 70 सब अब ये number इसके अंदर आएगा. Check if less than 70, that's false, so it goes to the next step. Check if less than 80, again false. Go to the next step. Check if less than 90, again false. Check if otherwise, basically less than 90 नहीं है, so it necessarily has to be greater than or equal to 90, which gives you an A grade directly. ठीक है, so both of these logics are correct. इन दोनों का मसला है. ठीक है? Yes. Online classes में ये बहुत मसला होता है. You cannot really see the expression on anybody's face. जी Sajid sir.
Yes sir, all is clear.
Okay. I was just saying online classes में it's a problem that you can't really see anybody's expression, so you're not sure कि क्या situation है. Is it very confusing for everyone or it's all very easy? So silence जब online class में होती है, it only has two meanings. या तो सब समझ आ गया या फिर कुछ भी नहीं समझ आया. तो I can't really be sure which of the two cases this is, but let's move on then. So we have done the grading, right? We have the grades from A to F, so A, B, C, or F. And now what I want to do is I want to count the number of students that fall in each of these grades. Okay? Say A kitne ke the, B kitne ke the, C kitne ke the, F kitne ke the. Okay? I want to do a count like this. अब इसका एक बहुत ही अच्छा तरीका होता है, that's a pivot table. You don't write any formulas there. You just do it directly. We'll do that hopefully sometime tomorrow. We'll start that. Yeah, so if we have the quiz tomorrow as well, hopefully we'll have enough time to start that as well. But otherwise, of course, next week तो हमें उसकी ज़्यादा practice करनी है, on Saturday at least. But for now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to use functions for this. तो इसके लिए basically आपके पास ना दो functions को combine करके you get another function called count if. Count करना है based on some condition. ठीक है? So इसमें आपकी दो variations होती हैं. One is count if that can take only one condition, and then you can have count ifs as well. जहाँ पे you can have multiple conditions applied on multiple things. Okay, I'm just going to show count if here, and I would encourage you to actually explore count ifs yourself as well. Okay, logic is very similar. Actually, let me actually start with count if first, then we get to the other one. Count if क्या करता है? So as the formulas, as the function's name also suggests, it's going to count values based on some condition. ठीक है? अब इसके दो arguments होते हैं. The first argument is the range that you want to give. ठीक है? So किस चीज के ऊपर आपने जो है वो condition apply करनी. ठीक है? So that's the first argument. So condition आपने किस पे apply करनी है? You're going to apply the condition on this thing इन सारे cells के ऊपर, ठीक है? Based on what? आपने कैसे count करने हैं? You want to count whether you have how many A's you have, ठीक है? तो criteria is going to be just A there, yeah? So that's one way of writing this. Just to explain for now, अब वहाँ पे क्या करें? The range is C2 to C51. इस range में आपने देखना है कितने आपके पास A's आ रहे हैं, right? So A क्योंकि text है तो इसलिए हमने यहाँ पे inverted commas के अंदर इस तरह से लिखा, and this gives us the result that's 18 A's in total. So in that range you are going to get 18 A's in total. Okay. Now there are a few things that are that should be improved here, and you'll figure them out when I extend this formula down. When I extend this, well, something is not working very fine. इसमें यहाँ पे कुछ problems हैं. So क्या problem है जब मैं extend करता हूँ? एक तो A वैसे ही रह गया मेरा. तो मैंने A लिखा था, यहाँ पे तो B आना चाहिए था. Okay, so that's the first thing that I noticed, that A खुद से लिखने के बजाय I could have actually referred to the cell on the left. यहाँ पे जो भी cell है उसका reference ले लेते हैं. ठीक है, so यहाँ पे A है, जहाँ पे जो भी value है उसका reference ले लेते हैं. यहाँ पे A है, ये नीचे move करते जाएगा. You've got B, then you could have got C in the next cell, then F. Okay, so that's one thing. And okay, so that's better. That seems to work. So now we've got the number of B's, the number of C's, the number of F's. But let's count these cells. Let's total these cells. हमारे पास total क्या आता है? जब भी आप किसी numbers वाले cell को select करते हैं ना, ऐसे इस तरह से. For example, मैं कोई भी इस तरह मैंने 4 cells select किए हैं. You look at the bottom here. यहाँ पे bottom में देखें, bottom right पे zoom के साथ you'll have some statistics shown for those numbers there. आपके पास average आ रही होती है, count आ रही होती है, sum आ रहा होता है. ये by default जो है आपके पास Excel show करता है. You can actually customize this as well, as far as I remember. आप इसमें add कर सकते हैं कुछ चीजें. इसकी option यहाँ पे कहीं होती है. So for example, यहाँ पे sum आ रहा है, maximum, minimum, numerical count. You can add these things, these statistics if you want, by right-clicking there, if you have to. Okay. So यहाँ पे मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? मैंने चारों cells को select किया. The sum is 48. लेकिन मेरे पास कितने students हैं total? I had 50 students. और A, B, C, F सारे grades में जब मैं count कर रहा हूँ, I'm getting 48 here. Any idea what the problem is? Yes, Ali?
Yes, sir.
I'm getting 52.
Sir, we have not selected the number of students at A grade वाली row में.
Exactly. हमने यहाँ पे fix नहीं की थी range. What's happening is अभी नीचे वाले cell में जा रहा हूँ, देखिए range मेरी move कर गया नीचे. At C5 to C54. वो ऊपर वाले 3 को count नहीं कर रहा और नीचे वो blank cells पे चला गया. Because वो नीचे move कर गया इस तरह से. We don't want that range to move basically. तो हम क्या करते हैं? When we write that there, we fix these cells. ये इसका starting point भी और end point भी दोनों fix करते हैं. C2 से start करना चाहिए और C51 पे ही end करना चाहिए. And now we extend this. हमने fix कर दिया उसको C2 से C51 तक. So this is also C2 to C51. And now this works. Okay. So the total is 50 now, and we've counted the number of students that have got each of those particular grades. Okay. Does that make sense? Any problems there?
No, sir. Clear.
No, sir. Clear.
Okay, great. So that's the countif function. I mean, the countif function, there are a number of variations basically. Okay, and I would really and to basically spend time on understanding each of those variations. That's going to take us quite a lot of time. But a number of them are actually quite useful. So, for example, यहाँ पे मैंने क्या किया? यहाँ पे मैंने सिर्फ ये criteria दिया कि my cell is equal to something. ठीक है? So ये that works here. ठीक है? Now I could have other things there. So I could have, for example, यहाँ पे तो I'd not be able to give an example using that. Lekin sometimes when you have a longer text instead of just grades, you can give conditions like these. For example, if a text contains something, तो आप उसको select कर लो. If a text starts with something, if a text ends at something, okay? So all things like this, you can actually incorporate here. इसके लिए कुछ symbols होते हैं, एक asterisk symbol होता है, एक आपके पास ये basically wild card characters कहते हैं इनको, asterisk symbol होता है, question mark symbol होता है, जिनको आप use करते हो उस तरह की search के अंदर. We will not be able to do this in class, but I really recommend that you go through this page. I'm going to recommend COUNTIF का help page जो Excel के ऊपर है ना, that lists out all of these different cases. Let me see if I can find that very quickly. I would recommend that you go through that और आप इसको experiment करने की कोशिश करें इनके ऊपर. Like versus different cases दिए हैं, question mark वाला, asterisk वाला, and then also you have numbers there. Let's say आपने इस तरह का कुछ करना होता कि the criteria is that the number should be greater than something or less than something, or alphabetically as well. If your text starts with a letter that comes after a particular letter, alphabetically आप उसको उस तरह भी कर सकते हो. All of these different conditions can be applied. लेकिन इसका syntax जो है आपको देखना होता है. I'm going to post this link here in the chat box here, and I would recommend that you try and go through that, and that's going to be very helpful for all of you if you work with this in your routine work. So this is the official page on COUNTIF on the Microsoft own support page. I actually recommend you to look at the examples given below. इसमें आपको बहुत सारे different cases दिए हुए हैं और उसमें syntax vary करता है हर case के अंदर. So you can go through that, and if you have any questions on that, we can discuss those in the in one of our office hours. You can just email me, and we can set up a time. But I would really recommend that you go through this. Okay? So COUNTIF के लिए similarly there's another function called COUNTIFs. ठीक है? यहाँ पे हमने क्या किया है COUNTIF के अंदर, अच्छा where am I? Lost track. Yeah. So COUNTIF के अंदर we have only one range that we can give and only one criteria that we can give, है ना? और उसी जो आपने criteria वाली range होती है उसी में से आपको count करना होता है ना? There's another function that's called COUNTIFs. Again, different description, different thing. COUNTIF में क्या आ रही है? Counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. COUNTIFs count the number of cells specified by a given set of conditions. So now we can have multiple conditions. You see the syntax here. You start with criteria range 1 and criteria 1. So आप पहला criteria की range बताते हो और उसका criteria बताते हो. Similarly, आप जब ये first डाल दोगे, you'll have the option to add another criteria, another criteria range. ठीक है, तो आप जितने मर्जी conditions यहाँ पर डाल सकते हो. आपको multiple columns के ऊपर condition डालनी है, आप वो input कर सकते हो. I'll ask you to experiment with this as well. और इसमें भी आप simply क्या करेंगे? You are going to go to just Google it. You'll find some very useful help pages there. आप multiple conditions के लिए इसको use कर सकते हैं. Let me post one here. So this one website that I really like with very simple explanations. That's Excel-easy. That's one possibility that you can refer to. And there's the other possibility is this official Microsoft page, support page. You can also have a look at that. Okay, so these are things that I would recommend to have a look at in your own time. अगर आप ये use करते हैं. So of course, anything that we are doing that we are not covering in class, it's not part of your part of something that is going to be tested in a quiz or in an exam. ठीक है, quiz or exam में test नहीं होगी. But of course, assignment में हो सकती है because then you have your own time to explore yourself or explore correctly, you can figure that out. All right, so this is something that I would recommend that you try and explore on yourself. इसमें syntax specifically जो है ना, you're not going to remember that always. अगर आप वो daily use करते हो, तो then of course you'll start remembering that. In COUNTIF में कुछ जो है ना syntax is a bit complicated. कभी आपको inverted commas use करने पड़ते हैं. Inverted commas के अंदर आपको वो ग्रेटर देन लेस देन का साइन डालना पड़ता है, कभी आपको जो है सेल रेफरेंस जो है उसके साथ अगर आपको ग्रेटर देन लेस देन का साइन डालना पड़े, उसके लिए एक specific syntax है that you have to use. So for that I would recommend that you refer to that and have a look at those pages whenever you want to use that. But of course if you use this regularly, आपको वो एक तरह से आपके ज़हन में रह भी जाता है. Okay, but for any assignment in which you have to do, you have of course this chance to explore it further on yourself. उसमें कोई restriction as such नहीं है कि आप कुछ नहीं खुद से कर सकते. So you can Google, you can access any help pages that you want, and you can try to explore it yourself. So 2 things that I want you to do from here: count if, look at variation from the pages that I posted, and also look at this count ifs function. यहाँ पे आप multiple conditions डाल सकते हो. So I posted some links there. These are the official support pages. वहाँ पे देख सकते हैं. YouTube videos there. If you don't understand text very well, YouTube videos are the go-to solution in that case, and they are also going to be helpful. Okay, so we're going to have a break at this point, and let's have a 20-minute break, and we'll come back at around 4:25 inshallah, and then we'll resume, and we'll end around 5:30 as usual inshallah. Yeah, 5:30 के आसपास देखेंगे. If we have to take 5 more minutes possibly, if we have to, but that's where we end. Okay, let's take a 20-minute break, and let's resume around 4:25. Okay. Okay. Any questions, by the way?
No, sir.
No,
All
sir.
clear.
Okay.
Sir, can you just go to the first sheet? I lost my internet connection at that time. I just want to see the first 2-3 formulas.
Yeah. Are you asking about this mean, median, maximum?
Yeah. Yes. Till I joined from lower quartile. The first 3-4 formulas I missed that time. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Done.
No problem. So we started with this concatenate function. ठीक है, concatenate में क्या किया था हमने इनको combine कर दिया, January और year को with a comma and a space in between them. And then after that, what we try to look at is हम January month को किस तरह से first 3 letters उसके crack कर सकते हैं. We can do the same thing for all the months, but have this data like this. ठीक है. अब let's say आपको ये करना होता, instead of what we did earlier, that you want the format to be like this. A month ke, we only need the first 3 letters, let's say. Then you have a dash between that, then you have year after that. Now you want this format. Month ke say 3 letters, and then the year, and you have dash between them. So what you could do is, you would have concatenate formula outside. Concatenate के अंदर आप क्या करते? Concatenate के अंदर आप नेस्ट कर देते, concatenate के अंदर आप लेफ्ट फंक्शन लगा देते इसके ऊपर, मंथ के ऊपर. तो देखें, अभी नेस्टिंग का थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना है आपने, इसको समझने की कोशिश करनी है. concatenate का first argument is text 1. पहला text क्या होना चाहिए? text 1 की जगह आपने क्या किया है? You written this whole thing. So text 1 में क्या होएगा? जो left of A2 का जो result होएगा, that's going to be inputted into this first argument of concatenate. So पहले ये left A2 evaluate होएगा और वो concatenate का first input बन जाएगा, ठीक है? So month के 3 letters उठा लिए पहले. अच्छा sorry, A2 में इसको बताना भी है कितने characters उठाने हैं. So left A2 and then how many characters? You need 3 characters. ठीक है? That's the first argument in the second argument is going to be a dash because I'm a dash चाहिए in between. So we have dash inside inverted commas like this because text है, so बताना है text है, कैसे बताएंगे? Using inverted commas. And then you have a comma और इसके बाद आप बताओगे what year is, that's B2 and you close the bracket. Okay, so that's your concatenate function that gives you this result. So this is the format that we were looking for. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes,
sir.
अच्छा, now let's say हमें ये भी नहीं चाहिए था, we only wanted the last 2 characters from the year, not the whole year. What do you think we should do for that? हमें सिर्फ last 2 characters चाहिए यहाँ से. 2017 का हमें क्या चाहिए? सिर्फ last 2 characters.
well, we put again another left character.
So right.
So right में
basically
करेंगे
सिर्फ
right character.
Yeah. So जिस तरह के पास left function होता है, we also have a right function like that. So what that's going to do is, so हमने देखे अब इसका format करना है month के 3 letters और year के सिर्फ last 2 letters. So instead of writing the year directly there, what we can do is we have another function called right. Right? You could have guessed right function को क्या करना चाहिए? It's going to pick up some characters from the right side of the text. ठीक है? So अब आपको year के right side से 2 characters उठा लेना है. Right side with 2 numbers. Okay, and then you close this bracket and then finally you close the outside bracket that was of concatenate. We आपने close कर दिया. So left side से आपने January month के 3 letters उठा लिए और year के आपने right side से 2 letters उठा लिए. And this is what you get, January 17 like. Right, so from that information that you had in 2 different columns, आपने इसको इस तरह से combine कर लिया like this. Is that okay? So you understand 2 things from here. One is the functions left and right, and the other is nesting some function inside another function. एक function के अंदर आप किस तरह से कोई और function भी apply कर सकते हो. Is that okay?
No sir, जरा quickly जरा दोबारा काइंडली कर रिव्यू दे दें इसका दोनों का जनवरी 2017 और नेक्स्ट वाला.
Okay. So there are 2 functions that we have. One is the left function. Left function क्या करता है? Left function 2 arguments. ठीक है? अच्छा, इसमें हम open करके यहाँ पे fx पर click करेंगे ना, fx पे आपके पास इस तरह की चीज खुल जाती है एक डायलॉग. Actually have a description of each argument there. So आप text पे click करें तो it returns the specified number of characters from the start of a text string. ये तो function की description है. This is what the function does. It returns the specified number of characters. जितने भी आप number specify करोगे, it's going to return that number from the start of a text string. The first argument is text. Text is the text string containing the characters you want to extract. Okay, so इस text में से आपने कोई characters उठाने हैं, आपको उठाने हैं इस A2 के अंदर से, ठीक है? Okay, so let's go back to that. What is the second character? The second argument, the second input is it specifies how many characters you want left to extract. ठीक है, left side से आपको कितने characters उठाने हैं. ठीक है, अगर आप इसको omit कर दोगे, since it's an optional argument, अगर आप इसको छोड़ दोगे, इसको कुछ भी नहीं लिखोगे यहाँ पे, by default it's going to consider only one character from the left. आप खुद से डाल सकते हो, आपको कितने चाहिए? आपको 3 चाहिए. Write 3 here. आपके पास ये आ गया Jan like this. ठीक है, उसके बाद year से आपको क्या करना है? उसके right side से कुछ उठाना है. Exactly the same format of the function. इस text के आपको right side से कितने characters उठाने हैं? 2 characters उठाने हैं. So you apply the right function there, close the bracket, and you've got 17 out of all of them. Right? यहाँ पे सारों के total 17 था, तो it's not making much difference. But of course, if you had different years, तो आपके पास उसकी basis पर उसके last 2 characters उठा लेते. And then what we're doing is we're basically combining these two. And इसको combine कर दिया किसके साथ? मैंने एक dash लगा दिया और ये कर दिया. ठीक है, D2 then dash then E2. क्या दे देगा आपको? Jan 17 onwards, all of these. ठीक है, so इस तरह आप कर सकते हैं इसको step by step. But if you were to do all of this in one single cell, what would you do? Concatenate with the first argument है उसकी जगह वो पूरा function लिख दो. So left of A2, 3. उसके बाद the second argument आपने dash डाल दिया. Third argument में आप दोबारा से वो पूरा function लिख दो. Right of the year, right से कितने characters उठाने हैं आपको? 2 characters उठाने हैं. That's what you have there. So हमने यहाँ पे क्या किया था? एक ही cell के अंदर वो सब कुछ इकट्ठा कर लिया. Is that okay, Hassan?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is what we have done. So we've discussed the right function, we've discussed the left function. There's also another type of function. So let's say I've got the names here. आपको एक mid function भी होता है. ये mid function क्या करता है? What mid function does is it basically extracts a certain number of characters from the middle. Left क्या करता है? Left से उठाता है. Right क्या करता है? Right से उठाता है. Mid क्या करना चाहिए? इसको दरमियान से उठाना चाहिए. And that's exactly what it does. So mid function क्या करेगा? You're going to give a text. ठीक है, ये आपने text दिया. ऐसे आपको पता होना चाहिए यहाँ पे आपको start कहाँ से करना है और आपको end का आपको number of characters कितने चाहिए. तो आपको कहाँ से start करना है? Let's say you want कि second name जो है उसके first 3 letters आपको चाहिए. ठीक है, so second name के first 3 letters. यहाँ पे I've written this like this deliberately. ये standardized format है कि second name एक ही जगह से start हो रहा है, but of course it's not going to be always the case. इसमें आपको कोई extra condition लगानी पड़ सकती है, but यहाँ पे it's standardized like this. And what you want to do is you want to extract 3 characters from the second name. ठीक है, yeah, let's say 2 characters from the second name. ठीक है, अब second name कहाँ से start हो रहा है? Starting character number कौन सा है? अब count कर लेते हैं. A is the first character, space is the second character, and then B is the third character. So आपको third number से start करना. So that's your second argument here. Start number 3 से start करना. ठीक है? And then how many characters do you want? You want 2 characters. आपको second name से आपको 2 letters उठाने हैं पहले वाले. ठीक है? So the number of characters you want is 2. आपने इसको close कर दिया. You get BI there. And similarly for all the rest of them. गोहर से आपको GO मिल गया. अजहर से आपको AZ मिल गया. अरहमा से आपको जो है वो AR मिल गया. जलीद से आपको JA मिल गया. ठीक है? Does that make sense? आप mid से भी कोई values उठा सकते हैं इस तरह से. So basically the idea is आपके पास कुछ जो है वो when do you apply these things, then you have to manipulate your data somehow. आपके पास एक column पड़ा हुआ है, इसमें से कुछ चीजें आपको extract करनी है. For example, what you may have to do is आपको इस तरह से codes पड़े हो, let's say. So what are your codes? आपके पास एक standardized format है codes का, right? So EMBITE 20 something, so 20005, right? And then you've got other codes. Let me just copy this here. So 20, let's say 35, and you've got 15, 21, and then let's say you've got 2. Yeah, of course, different codes. Now, let's say what you wanted was you wanted to know what is, in fact, let's say आप एक और भी चीज़ आप ऐड कर लो. So you have your EMBITE code और इसके साथ और क्या चीज़ हो सकती है? Let's say we're talking about the course that you're taking right now. ठीक है, so which course are we talking about? We have quant right now. So we're taking some यहाँ पे सब क्या? Okay, now let's say आपको extract करना होता है इसमें से what is your ID? So EMBITE ठीक है, आपका पूरा ID is EMBITE 20005. लेकिन मुझे चाहिए सिर्फ जो आपका नंबर है आईडी के अंदर, ठीक है। नाउ इट्स अ स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड फॉर्मेट, सो जनरली स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड फॉर्मेट के अंदर से आपको इस तरह की एक्सट्रैक्शन इज जनरली गोइंग टू बी इजियर। इसमें आपको बहुत ज्यादा कंडीशंस अप्लाई करती हैं, करनी पड़ती है। यू नो एग्जैक्टली कि एम्बाइट में कितने लेटर्स हैं, तो यू हैव गॉट 6 लेटर्स हियर। आपको नंबर्स उठाने हैं, तो आप कहाँ से स्टार्ट करोगे? आपको इस टेक्स्ट में से कुछ निकालना है। Where do you start from? You start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th character. 7th character होता है. So the start number is 7, and then you need 5 characters. आपको 5 numbers हैं. You write 5 there. You're going to be able to extract those numbers out. ठीक है? ये आपके पास वो numbers आगे सारे. So you could do things like this using that. All right. So your data manipulation के लिए text functions generally use होते हैं. You need to change something in the data, create a new variable using that data, so you can use that. So similarly, for example, आपके पास यहाँ पे date अगर इस तरह के format में already given होती, right? आपके पास combined format में date है. You could extract, for example, the month name out of that. You could extract the year after that. अगर कुछ date भी दी होती, आप कुछ functions को combine करके आप date भी निकाल सकते थे. So it could be used for things like this. ठीक है, हम एक complicated example अभी इसके बाद देखेंगे in some time, अभी today, but I hope you understand where it's going to be very useful. Now, let me go to another example. So we discussed concatenate, we've discussed right, we've discussed mid, we've discussed left. Acha. Now, after this, there are so there are a few functions like the length functions. This is also going to be very useful. आप किसी भी text की length find कर सकते हो. Length is the number of characters that text has basically. ठीक है? So in this case, for example, अगर आपको number of characters find करने हो इन सब के अंदर से, so what you could do is you could say आपको length find करनी है. You have a function called len, L-E-N. ये क्या करता है? It returns the number of characters in a text string. आप number of characters find कर सकते हो using this. So length of A17 आपने यहाँ पे डाला, and you can do it like this. ठीक है? आपके पास हर नाम की यहाँ पे total length आ गई. Total number of characters that particular name has. ठीक है? Does that make sense? Let me actually copy that below. कर लेते हैं. उधर मैंने mid को use किया है. I'm actually going to share this file later on with you, so I'm just changing it to a format that will be a bit easier to understand, perhaps.
A17.
Yes, Mohal.
So how it's calculating this length of 8 for A Bilal? Shouldn't it be 7?
Okay, so what do you think? So what could be the problem?
With this space.
Space add होगी.
So this is a very common problem. This is a very common problem that you're going to run, and that all of you, that each one of you is going to run at some point in your work life, and that is आपको एनालिसिस कर रहे होंगे, you'll be stuck और आपको समझ नहीं आ रही होगी कि ये एरर क्यों आ रहा है कोई, या फिर आप पिवट टेबल बना रहे हो तो उसके अंदर वो दो दफा ए बिलाल शो कर रहा होगा. सो दो अगर इवन आपने अगर उसको लेट्स से एग्रीगेट किया हुआ है तो एक ए बिलाल को अलग से शो कर रहा होगा, दूसरे को अलग से शो कर रहा होगा. एंड द रीजन फॉर दैट इज गोइंग टू बी कि एक स्पेस इसमें ऐसा होगा जो आ रहा होगा. सो इन दिस केस दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम. सो यू गॉट अ स्पेस हियर जिसको वो काउंट कर रहे हैं एंड पे, एंड the space at the end, this is actually the one that's going to cause most problems because ये नजर नहीं आ रही होती, right? Left पे भी नजर आ जाती है, दरम्यान में पता चल जाता है कि अच्छा एक से ज्यादा spaces हैं, लेकिन राइट साइड वाली नजर नहीं आती है. It really wastes your time if you do have a data that has issues like this. उसके लिए आप हमेशा जब डेटा को क्लीन कर रहे होते हैं, स्पेशली टेक्स्ट डेटा को, you have this function called trim function. Trim function क्या करता है? As the word suggests, it's going to basically remove all the spaces that are on the sides. अगर start में कोई space है या end में कोई space है, उसको remove कर देगा. ठीक है? And in addition to that, अगर दरम्यान में कोई extra spaces है, for example अगर मेरे पास यहाँ पे होती इस तरह extra space होती कोई, उसको भी remove कर देगा. So it's going to, we had two spaces here. Trim के बाद क्या आएगा? Extra space को remove कर देगा. ठीक है? So this is also another very useful function. Whenever you have textual data, before you do any analysis, आप उसको trim जरूर कर लें. ठीक है? Because अगर आप trim नहीं करेंगे, आपको फिर कहीं पे कोई error आ रहा होगा और आपको नहीं समझ आएगी. फिर आपको काफी देर जो है debug करने के बाद you'll realize कि अच्छा ये problem था, एक space था जो आपको नजर नहीं आ रहा था. Okay, so that's what the trim function does, right? It removes any extra spaces that you have. Ramsha, you wanted to add something? Was it the same thing that you wanted to say? Okay, space hai wahan pe? Okay, she's probably not here. Let's go back there. Yeah. Okay, so length ये करता है, trim ये करता है. Now there are a couple of other functions जिनसे हम क्या करते हैं. We can improve the formatting of our text. So I encountered this problem because I have to use Twitter data for some of my projects that I do. And Twitter पे क्या होता है? You've got people typing, their tweets, and you've got different kinds of people, right? So some people write very well in the sense that they use proper, full sentences. Some people use shorthand. Some people use some abbreviations for something. And there's some people who are just very cool and they write like this. So they write something like this. You have seen these people, right? Now this is very weird, or you have to somehow deal with this first. So basically, you got some functions जिसमें ना आप पूरे टेक्स्ट को कन्वर्ट कर सकते हो to either lowercase or uppercase or a proper thing. So let's do it here. So lower, upper, and proper. So right, something like this. Yeah. Okay. So how do you basically correct this? We've got some functions. Lower function क्या करता है? Lower function, what this does is it converts all the characters to the lowercase. Okay, so this is what you get. ठीक है, सारे आपके जो है वो lowercase में convert हो जाते हैं. Upper function क्या करता है? इन सबको इस तरह से upper letters में convert कर देता है. और proper क्या करता है? It's going to convert the first letter of every word.
सर सॉरी मैं डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया था. आप वो बता रहे थे जो लेंथ 8 क्यों आ रही थी, प्लीज आप उसे एक दफा रिपीट कर देंगे.
Okay, I'll go back to that in a moment. Just give me a couple of minutes. Yeah. So you've got text like this. How do you correct this? You've got three functions. It depends on what you want. If you want to convert to all small letters, you've got a lower function. Lower के अंदर आप क्या करोगे? सिर्फ वो text input कर दोगे. It's going to give you all small letters. Upper में you input that. It's going to convert that to all capital letters. Proper क्या करेगा? It's going to convert the first letter to a capital and the remaining letters first letter of every word to capital and the remaining letters to small letters. Okay. So this is what these functions can be used for. Any questions on that? Is this clear?
Sir, I just want to ask something.
Yeah.
Sir, जिस तरह वर्ड में होता है लोअर केस होता है अपर केस होता है और एक कैपिटलाइज ईच वर्ड वाला होता है, ये कवर हो गए लोअर अपर एंड प्रॉपर केस में ना. एक वहां पे सेंटेंस नेचर का होता है कोई ना, वो एक्सेल में हो सकता है?
So normally एक्सेल में जो डेटा होता है उसमें आपके पास मतलब कंप्लीट सेंटेंसेस कम ही होते हैं. So basically you have categorical data, you've got very short sentences. So I haven't really used that. I'll have to search for that if it's possible. Let me just do a quick Google search and see if I can find that. So got upper, lower, and we got proper and sentence case. Yeah. तो सेंटेंस के लिए yeah, so you don't have a direct formula. You'll have to combine upper, left, and lower, do some concatenation, and that is going to make one function like that. So a lot of times this happens that you're looking for something that's not directly available in Excel. Directly वो formula available नहीं है. So one way is to just think about this and make up your own formula. But if you want to be quick, and your purpose generally is going to be that you just figure that out and apply that wherever you have to, right? So आप इसके लिए क्या करते हो? Just type your query in Google, on Google, and it's going to suggest you a complete formula. अब उसको थोड़ा सा उसमें आपको करना क्या है? सिर्फ आपको उसको समझना है, आपको उसको थोड़ा सा change करना है according to your need, and you can just use it like that. ठीक है? So basically अगर आप ये search करते हो ना, this thing, how to convert text into a sentence case, मैंने search किया, Google किया मैंने, and I got this link, and that gives you a nested formula using upper, lower, and proper functions. इनको combine करके उसने एक formula खुद से generate किया, and using the length function as well, that does the job. ठीक है? Excel के अंदर directly available नहीं है, तो इसने ये इन सबको combine करके it is made a custom formula. ठीक है? Now, what you need to do is you need to be able to understand the function from there and be able to apply that in wherever you need to apply that. Okay? So that's a very important skill as well. You will not always be able to make these formulas yourself. Okay? आप जो है इसमें क्या तरीका होगा, फिर आप search करो and you try to debug that. Not debug, you try to understand the formula. उसमें फिर text cell references आपको बस उसको सही करने होंगे. And if you want to do some modification, you need to understand the function and see how it's working. Or in order to understand a function, there's a very useful thing here that I could mention. For example, यहाँ पे हमारे पास एक function हमने use किया. It's not very complicated. It's just two functions inside another function. But if you wanted to understand how this is happening, इसमें हर step के ऊपर क्या हो रहा है, there's a very useful command here that's in the formulas tab. So formulas tab के अंदर आप जाओ, you've got an option here of evaluating a formula. So evaluate formula. So उस सेल के ऊपर क्लिक करें, you click on evaluate formula there, और यहाँ पे जाके you've got that function written, right? So यहाँ कुछ function सारा आ रहा है यहाँ पे. Now what this is going to show you is what is happening at each step in this function. सबसे पहले क्या चीज़ evaluate होती है, फिर वो next step पे क्या होता है, उससे next step पे क्या होता है. For example, let's have a look at this. So we've got this function written here there, हमने लिखा था. सबसे पहले देखें जो underlined है ना A2, that is the first thing that Excel is going to evaluate. ठीक है, सबसे पहले वो क्या कर रहा है, लेफ्ट से उसने स्टार्ट किया है पढ़ना फंक्शन को. A2 उसने पता चलेगा अच्छा this is a reference to some cell, तो सबसे पहले वो evaluate करेगा. हम क्या करेंगे, evaluate के ऊपर क्लिक करें, just click on it once, evaluate के ऊपर. A2 को देखें उसने चेंज कर दिया, रिप्लेस कर दिया, जो उसके अंदर वैल्यू थी, A2 के अंदर क्या वैल्यू थी, it's on the left there. You cannot scroll left, but A2 के अंदर basically January लिखा हुआ था, तो उसने A2 को January से replace कर दिया. Now this whole thing is underlined. Left function पूरा underlined. यानी कि next thing what that Excel is going to do is it's going to evaluate this part of the function. So left January 3. यानी कि January से 3 letters first वाले उठा के यहाँ पे लिख देगा. So let's click on evaluate again. So you've got January written here now. Okay, so it's going step by step what Excel is doing, how Excel is actually evaluating this formula. So if you were to understand how a formula is working, this is a very useful thing. You have this function को लिखें, you apply that somewhere, you open this evaluate formula thing and you see what is happening at each step, try to understand किस तरह से formula चल रहा है. ठीक है, where is it starting from and what is happening at every single step. So you start from evaluate here. That's Jan. Jan हो गया यहाँ पे. So concatenate के अंदर भाई Jan लिखा हुआ आ गया है. You got a dash. तो ये तो चीजें already evaluate कर ली हैं. Now it goes to the third thing here. That was the right function. इसमें सबसे पहले इसमें B2 evaluate करना है before it can apply the right function. So B2 evaluate करना है. You click on that. You get 2017 there. ठीक है. B2 की जगह 2017 लिख दिया. उसके अंदर value थी. अब ये पूरा right function evaluate होना है. Click on that again. इसमें देखें 2017 के राइट से 2 लेटर्स उठाने थे ना, 2 कैरेक्टर्स उठाने थे, उसने 17 उठा दिया. एंड नाउ एट द लास्ट स्टेप उसने पूरा अंडरलाइन कर दिया, ये यानी कि वो कंकैटिनेट को इवैल्यूएट करेगा, और वो किया तो आपके पास Jan 17 आ गया, Jan 17. So this was the complete process that it's actually following. Right? Does that make sense? So it's a very helpful tool to understand what is happening at every step. I really recommend if you want to have an understanding of any complicated formula, you can use this thing.
ये सर evaluate आपने formulas में जाके कहाँ से उठाया है?
So formulas में ये evaluate formula auditing का एक section है, इसके अंदर आपके पास ये evaluate formula का बटन है.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Okay. So this is a very useful tool for understanding formula. Acha, so Zia was asking about this thing that he missed earlier. So let me actually just comment on that. So we had A space Bilal or end pe हमारे पास space आ रही थी. So basically what happens is a lot of times when you extract data from some online source or from some system that you have, अगर वो आपने standardize नहीं किया हुआ तो उसमें कभी-कभी ये हो सकता है कि extra spaces आपको आ रही हो right side के ऊपर specifically. नान में और left side पे तो it's generally visible. आपको नजर भी आ जाता है कि नान में extra space है, left side पे extra space है, but right side वाली space का problem ये होता है कि it's not visible generally. ठीक है? So length जो है यहाँ पे 8 इस वजह से आ रही थी because end पे हमारे पास एक extra space थी, that's why it was also counting that, so that's why we got the length 8 here. But what that actually tells us is whenever you're analyzing a data, और हमारे पास textual data यहाँ पे जिसको हमने use करना है अपने analysis के अंदर, the first thing you should always do is you should apply the trim function on that column ताकि कोई भी इस तरह के right or left पे जो extra spaces हैं वो remove हो जाए. ठीक है? Because otherwise आपके analysis के अंदर it's going to cause you problem, because अगर कहीं पे A बिलाल लिखा होएगा और कहीं पे A बिलाल space लिखा होएगा, Excel doesn't know if these two are the same, because इसके अंदर एक extra space है वहाँ पे, इसके अंदर नहीं है, तो एक्सेल इज गोइंग टू ट्रीट देम डिफरेंटली, उनको अलग अलग ट्रीट करेगा। अगर आप एग्रीगेट करते हो फॉर एग्जांपल, वो इसका एग्रीगेट अलग शो करेगा, इसका एग्रीगेट अलग शो करेगा। सो अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स दिस प्रॉब्लम कम्स when you use lookup functions, when you use pivot tables, pivot charts. We have to be careful whenever you extract data from the web specifically. आप किसी भी वेबसाइट कोई टेबल कॉपी करो, उसके अंदर इस तरह के बहुत इश्यूज आते हैं, so you have to be careful about this. अगर आप वेब स्क्रैपिंग भी करते हो, वहां पे भी अक्सर इस तरह के इश्यूज आते हैं कि got some extra spaces sometimes because of how you have coded that scraper. So you use the trim function for that to correct that thing. Okay, is that clear, Zah?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Now the last thing about this, and then we'll do an example before we end. Lookup functions हम कल ही start करेंगे. There are two other functions. One is the search function and the other is the find function. ठीक है, दोनों क्या करते हैं? They basically कोई भी होता है वैसे, which is substitute function. Substitute function. Search or find or search find क्या करते हैं? They were exactly the same. There's only one difference. One of these is case sensitive and the other is not case sensitive. So basically what happens is, if you've got, let's say, let's think from here. नाम उठा लेते हैं. So let's say आप search use करते हो, लेकिन search में क्या बता रहे हैं? The number of characters are not case sensitive. Yeah, so search is not case sensitive. Find is case sensitive. ठीक है, तो what we're going to do is, okay, let's take 1 minute break for Azan, and then we'll restart, we'll resume. Just give me 1 minute. Alright, so the search function here is going to give you the character number of whatever you're searching for. So for example, let's say हमें यहाँ से search करना होता what is the position of the letter I, let's say, ठीक है? What we could do is, so यहाँ पे इसके 3 arguments हैं. Find text, so आपको क्या text find करना है? Let's say we need to find I in this, ठीक है? So I've written I here, and within what? Within which text? Within this text here. Yeah, दूसरा argument हो गया. Third argument is optional. You can specify कि आपने किस number से जो है वो search करना शुरू करना है, ठीक है? It's optional. You can just, if you just leave it, it's just going to give you the character number directly. So I हमने search किया था. So with what character number is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth position के ऊपर I आ रहा है, so that's why we're getting 4 as the return. ठीक है? If you go to search L, for example, this is I, by the way, जो मैंने लिखा था. If I were to write L there, this is L now. What do I get? I get 5 there. क्यों? Because left side से इसने search करना शुरू किया, and we got first, second, third, fourth, fifth character as L, so हमें 5 return मिल गए. अब देखिए, it's not going to give you multiple results, ठीक है? आपको सिर्फ एक ही output मिलेगी यहाँ पे. That's going to be whatever is the first thing that it comes across. So it's left side से search करना शुरू करना है. इसको जो first letter मिल गया, that's going to be returned as in उसका character number जो है वो return हो जाएगा, ठीक है? अगर आपको second L चाहिए होता, तो आप वो third argument जो है, अगर आपको पता होता पहले की position क्या है, तो आप search अगर वहां से करते, अगर आप 6th position के बाद से start करते search करना, क्योंकि आपको पहले पता है कि first letter L जो है वो 5 पे आ रहा था, 6 से start करते तो आपको बता दिया उसने दूसरा L कहाँ पे है, because आपने start number वाला एक और extra argument दे दिया था कि आपने सर्च करना इस नंबर से स्टार्ट करना है. तो उसने 6 नंबर से सर्च करना शुरू किया, उससे पहले वाले को उसने इग्नोर कर दिया. तो अब वो तो आपको बताएगा कि दूसरा L है वो कहाँ पर है, at 7th position. Does that make sense?
Can you just please repeat this again for the second L? How to find the second L?
For finding the second L, you need to know the position of the first L. आपको पता होना चाहिए first L क्या था, कहाँ पे था, ताकि आप उसके बाद से सर्च करना शुरू करें, वो फिर आपको second L की पोजीशन मिल जाएगी. तो हमने यहाँ पे पता चल गया हमें कि first L की पोजीशन was 1, पोजीशन was 5, sorry.
5.
तो उसके बाद फिर हम कह सकते हैं कि second L को सर्च करने के लिए आप 6th पोजीशन से आगे से स्टार्ट करो.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
And then you can find the second L. Now, but of course, now this is a problem, right? So, in order to find any of that letter, आपको पहले वालों का पता होना चाहिए कि पहले वाले किन positions के ऊपर आ रहे हैं, and then you can find the next one. तो इसके लिए आपको फिर 6 ये find करने के लिए किस number से start करना है, you need another function inside this. आपको पहले जो है एक और जो है वो apply करना पड़ेगा function कोई और. ठीक है?
जी sir.
It's hard to believe, sir.
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe that इस 6 का मतलब ये होगा कि 6 से आगे सर्च करना शुरू करेगा.
Because देखे ना उसने ये argument देखा, उसका नाम क्या है, start number.
Okay, that's fine.
किस point से आगे आपको सर्च करना?
Okay. It's
arguments
written.
के नाम देखे ना, find पहला argument was
fine.
find text, क्या find करना है, within text, within what, and then 6 is कि आप 6 number से start करो. So that was an optional argument that we left earlier. अगर आप उसको छोड़ देंगे, आपको पहला return दे देगा. अगर आप उसको लिख दोगे, तो वो वहीं से start करना, search करना शुरू करेगा.
It makes sense. Yes, you're right. Thank you.
तो देखिए मैंने ऑटोमेट कर दिया उसको. अगर मुझे सेकंड L चाहिए था, तो मैंने क्या किया यहाँ पे, मैंने थर्ड आर्गुमेंट के अंदर ना जो स्टार्ट नंबर था, उसके अंदर मैंने क्या किया, थर्ड आर्गुमेंट के अंदर मैंने दोबारा सर्च फंक्शन डाल दिया। अब ये वाला फंक्शन क्या करेगा, ये मुझे फर्स्ट एल का कैरेक्टर नंबर बता देगा। Does that make sense? ये जो मैंने हाईलाइट किया है, this is actually going to return to me the position of the first L. ठीक है? Does
Yes,
that
sir,
make
it's clear.
sense?
जी सर बिल्कुल जी।
So this is going to give me the position of the first L, और उसमें मैं अगर 1 ऐड कर दूं, मैं कहूं कि जो मैं बाहर वाला सर्च है, it should start from the character after this. तो मैंने +1 कर दिया ना कि इसके बाद वाले कैरेक्टर से स्टार्ट करो। That's why I've added +1 here. So ये पूरा आर्गुमेंट, पूरा ये जो चीजें मैंने डाल दी स्टार्ट नंबर में। The start number क्या होना चाहिए? The start number should be the position of the first L plus 1. वो मैं डालूंगा तो मुझे क्या मिल जाएगा, मुझे सेकंड L मिल जाएगा, लाइक दिस। ठीक है? तो आपको थोड़ा सा जिस तरह आप प्रोग्रामिंग में सोचते हो, उस तरह से आपको खुद से ये प्रोग्राम एक तरह से करना पड़ेगा, आपको लॉजिक बिल्ड करनी पड़ेगी, and then you can do something like this. ठीक है? Find works exactly the same way. It's the only difference is find is case sensitive. ठीक है? So वो capital और small letters में, वो आपको अगर आप यहाँ पे for example अगर आप find करते हो be in this, so let's say मैं find text में मैं b लिख देता हूँ और within this text, so it's not going to return me anything. Why? It's going to give me an error because मैंने small b लिखा था, वहाँ पे capital B था, तो मैं capital B लिखूंगा तो मुझे return मिल जाएगा। लेकिन अगर मैं search लिखता हूँ, search में अगर मैं small b लिख देता हूँ, that is still going to return me something. इसमें मुझे फिर भी 3 मिल गया वहाँ पे। ठीक है? So just remember, find is case sensitive. It's only going to work if you give it the exact case जिसके अंदर वो appear हो रहा है। ठीक है? Is that okay? Any problems there?
No, sir, clear.
So there's another function that's called the substitute function. वो मैं एक आपको example से कराऊंगा. This is the last thing that we're going to do for today. And after this, I would recommend that you go through this sheet here, extracting last names 2 के नाम से जो sheet है. You should go through this sheet and try to understand. ये मैंने पूरा जो है वो बनाया हुआ है खुद से. Step by step आपको क्या करना है. So this is the whole formula written in one single cell. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to extract the last name from all of these names. So हर एक में से आपके पास multiple names है, कहीं पे 2 नाम है, कहीं पे 3 है, कहीं पे 5 है. इन सब में से what I'm doing is I'm extracting the last name. ठीक है? और इसका function है पूरा like this. ठीक है? And then after this मैंने step by step बताया what is happening in each step. So, हर step में एक function क्या कौन सा apply हो रहा है, हम next step पे क्या क्या कर रहे हो. So if you combine all of this into one function, ये आपके पास left side पे इस तरह का ये function आ जाता है. तो ये function किस लिए use होएगा? To extract last name. I would want you to go through it and try to understand what really we are doing here. आप पहले ये right side पे देखें, सारे step by step देखें. Try to figure out what's happening at every position and every step. फिर उसको use करके ये जो एक single function बना हुआ है, try to understand this. ठीक है? But what I'm going to do now is going to help you in that when you try to explore that yourself. Let's say आपके पास एक standardized पता होता है आपको कि आपके पास 2 ही नाम है और इनको use करके आपने इनमें आपने last name निकालना होता है. ठीक है? So now this is an easier example because यहाँ पे सिर्फ 2 नाम है. That was more difficult जहाँ पे it could be any number of names जहाँ पे आपको ज़्यादा सोचना पड़ेगा. यहाँ पे there's only 2 names. So how do you extract the last name from here? So what would be your thinking process? Any idea?
Sir, left वाला function या right वाला function लगा के हम we can do it.
Okay, why left वाला function? हमें last name चाहिए.
So it can go both ways. Left से बस counting फर्क होगी, right से counting फर्क होगी.
Okay, ठीक है, सही है. अच्छा, let's say हमें right function लगाना है. So how do we use that? ठीक है, हमें इस text के right से कुछ उठाना है. Now the problem is how many number of characters. It could be any number. It could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 4, it could be 7, it could be 6. How do you figure out? That's the problem, right? So number of characters कैसे उठाएंगे?
Yeah, that's the problem. Yes, I didn't see that.
So we will count the length of the whole string first.
Okay, so we look at the length of the whole string. So that's the length. अच्छा आप पहले कह रहे हैं उसको अलग से कैलकुलेट कर लो?
नहीं सर, इसी में भी
this is the
कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं.
अच्छा, so right function के अंदर what we could do is we could say
So
length of
sir, either length of the whole string minus so find space, find
space,
comma, again whole string A2,
okay,
comma, starting position 1.
Starting position 1.
Close.
Okay. That's smart. So what did we do here? So would you like to explain to everyone?
So we find out that there is a space between the two names. So we have to single out. The space is breaking the two names. Actually, the idea behind this.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is so the first idea was correct. So the first idea was you have to start with the right function. I mean, right से कुछ number of characters उठाने हैं. The problem is how many number of characters. That is something that we do not know of. ठीक है? अभी आपको नहीं पता कि कितने characters उठाने हैं. That is the problem. So how do you figure that out? अब वो find करने के लिए हम क्या करते हैं? हम देखते हैं space के बाद कितने characters आ रहे हैं. ठीक है? Space के बाद कितने characters आ रहे हैं उसके लिए जो हम कर सकते हैं हम space की position find कर लें और total length में से उसको subtract कर दें.
Yes.
ठीक है? So that's what Zubair has suggested. So what we could do is we could say you have the total length. Total length आपको पता है इसकी क्या होनी चाहिए? जो भी length है उसमें से आप क्या करें? Find जो space वाली position है उसको आप minus कर दें. ठीक है? Space वाली position से position को आप उसमें से minus कर दें तो आपको वो number of characters बता देगा जो आपके last name के आ रहे हैं. Find आप क्या करें? Space inside that. That's it. That's what will give you that last name. ठीक है? तो अगर मैं step by step करूं पहले क्या कर रहे हैं हम लेंथ फाइंड कर रहे हैं लेंथ इज 14 इन दिस केस तो लेट्स हम सब की लेंथ फाइंड कर लेते हैं ठीक है और फिर हम कर रहे हैं स्पेस पोजीशन दैट्स गोइंग टू बी गिवन बाय फाइंड लाइक दिस फाइंड फंक्शन के अंदर हमने क्या किया स्पेस डाला देन दिस टेक्स्ट इसके अंदर हमें क्या मिल गया फाइंड स्पेस की पोजीशन मिल गई इन दोनों को यूज करके व्हाट वी कैन डू इज वी कैन फाइंड द लास्ट नेम लेंथ That's length minus space position. आपके पास last name की length आ गई. जब last name की length आ गई, ये हम right function में इनपुट कर सकते हैं. Right function के अंदर क्या किया? मैं ये डाला और ये last name की length डाल दी. Get the last name there. So this is what we are doing step by step. अभी आप इसको concatenated form में उस तरह से लिख लें, तो that's what you're going to get. So I'll show these formulas there as well. So that you can understand what's happening. Yeah, so this is what's happening in each step. ठीक है? So we first calculate the length. Length में से हमने space की position को minus किया. क्योंकि स्पेस की पोजीशन जो भी आ रही थी वो माइनस करेंगे तो हमारे पास लास्ट नेम की लेंथ आ जाएगी वंस वी हैव दैट लास्ट नेम्स लेंथ हम राइट फंक्शन के अंदर इनपुट कर देते हैं वो टेक्स्ट और वो लास्ट नेम की लेंथ सो दैट्स एग्जैक्टली व्हाट वी आर डूइंग हियर राइट फंक्शन के अंदर हमने क्या किया हमें वो टेक्स्ट के राइट से कुछ उठाना है वो राइट से क्या उठाना है नंबर ऑफ कैरेक्टर्स वो नंबर ऑफ कैरेक्टर्स हमें कहां से मिलेंगे लेंथ में से स्पेस की पोजीशन फाइंड करके तो हमने एक सेल के अंदर ये सारा कुछ लिख लिया इस तरह से. Is that clear? Any confusions there? Any problems?
सर ये एंड वाला स्टेप बता दें जब हमने नेम फाइंड किया है.
Last name यहाँ पे
एग्जैक्टली.
just use the right function. हमें last name की length मिल गई थी using the earlier calculations.
यस.
जब last name की length मिल गई तो बस right function में वो last name की length डाल दें. Right side से आपको उतने number of characters उठाने हैं and that's it.
परफेक्ट. आई गॉट इट.
ठीक है. Any other issues?
नो सर.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So we're going to stop here. And I'd recommend you to go through this thing, extracting last names to early sheet. Go through that and try to figure out what's happening at each step here. Tomorrow we'll look at lookup functions. I just remembered I missed that thing जो साजिद साहब ने कहा था. So conditional formatting वो भी हम कल देखेंगे. So for tomorrow the two main tasks are lookup functions and conditional formatting thing. And then we'll see if we can move on to pivot tables and pivot charts as well.